Honorable members, a pleasant morning. Please prepare for entry by the Speaker. Order.
Good morning. Great is thy faithfulness, O Lord, O Savior. There is no shadow of turning with you. Thou changest not, thy compassion, they fail not. Thank you, Jesus. Father, we give you thanks and praise for your goodness, your love, and your mercy. Thank you for this another opportunity. This is the day that you have made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Father, as the honorable members of this House are gathered today to discuss the motions and bills that are being brought forth, we pray for your guidance and we pray for strength. We pray for understanding and even at this moment for unity, that even as they discuss these motions and bills for the betterment of the people of Anguilla, we pray that you would have your divine way. We bring before you the Speaker and all members of the House, and we pray that your name will be lifted up as we give you praise and thanks for your faithfulness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. Good morning, members. You may be seated.
Confirmation of minutes. Minutes of proceedings of the 8th meeting of the 5th session of the 12th Anguilla House of Assembly.
Are there any amendments to the minutes, please? Since there are no amendments, can someone move and second that the minutes be accepted as circulated, please?
Madam Speaker, I move that the minutes be accepted as circulated.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of proceedings of the 8th meeting of the 5th session of the 12th Anguilla House of Assembly be confirmed as circulated. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Minutes of proceedings of the 8th meeting of the 5th session of the 12th Anguilla House of Assembly confirmed as circulated.
Oath of allegiance to new members, none. Announcements by the direction of the Speaker. Questions. The Honorable Single Island-wide member, Mr. Joseph Vanterpool, to ask the Minister of Sustainability, Innovation and Environment the following questions.
Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Good morning.
To the members of the Assembly, those in the gallery, and I'm sure the many Anguillians across the globe who are keenly tuned into today's proceedings. The questions that I have before me are questions that I would have received from constituents, and I'm asking on their behalf after conducting some consultations. Whereas on 24th June 2024, the government of Anguilla posted a message on Facebook which highlighted aspects of the Supplementary Budget Number 1 of 2024, passed in the House of Assembly on 14th June 2024. And whereas the Facebook post stated that a new fish processing plant is to be established in Island Harbor, and the operations would include washing, filleting, freezing, and smoking of fish. And whereas, at a recently held government press conference, the media inquired about the purchase of the building for the fish processing plant and the status of the same, and the Minister of Sustainability, Innovation and Environment, the Honorable Single Island-wide member, Mrs. Quincia Gomes-Marie, stated that the government is outfitting the building, PDG, that is the company that was identified where the purchase of the equipment would be coming from, is to provide a quote as to the type of equipment to be installed, and will be meeting with the fisher folk to understand what they would like to have. And whereas the said minister said they have plans to expand to the west of the existing building wherein the smoking of fish would take place, and whereas since the announcements made by the government of Anguilla regarding the utilization of the identified building as a fish processing plant, a number of residents in Island Harbor have raised numerous concerns with respect to the establishing of a fish processing plant in that particular location in Island Harbor, which is likely to impact sea bathing in the area, as well as commercial properties and residential homes. Can the Honourable Minister indicate to this Honourable House and to the people of Anguilla the following? Madam Speaker, it's a number of questions, so I'll just ask them and then ask supplementaries as required. Number one, what assessments have been or are planned to be conducted to evaluate the environmental impact of the fish processing plant on the surrounding marine ecosystem, particularly the sea bathing area and the nearby beach? Two, how will the plant address waste management to prevent pollution of the sea and nearby land areas? Three, what measures are being implemented to ensure that the plant complies with Anguilla's environmental protection laws as well as international standards? Four, what steps are being taken to mitigate potential health hazards for residents and visitors, such as odors, pests, and contamination of the surrounding waters? Five, how does the government plan to balance the economic benefits of the fish processing plant with the potential negative impacts on tourism, which relies heavily on clean beaches and unpolluted environments? Six, what consultations were held with local residents, businesses, and other stakeholders before approving the plant's location? Seven, what does government see as the potential impacts on the value of commercial and residential properties near the intended processing plant, and what safeguards are in place to protect the same? 8, how will the plant's operations affect the quality of life for those living and working in close proximity to the location identified? 9, what regulatory body will monitor the operations of the fish processing plant, and how frequently will inspections take place? 10, can you provide a timeline for any planned updates or reviews of the plant's impacts on the surrounding area? 11, were alternative locations considered for the plant? If so, what were the alternatives identified, and why was the current location in Island Harbor the selected one? 12, what contingency plans are in place should the plant's operations negatively impact the community or environment? 13, will the government commit to periodic public updates on the plant's environmental health and economic impacts? And finally, 14, how can concerned residents and business owners provide ongoing feedback or voice concerns as the plant begins or continues operations? Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sure the constituents are actively awaiting the response, as well as the people of Anguilla. Thank you.
The Honorable Single Island District Member.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, members of the House. Thank you, members, for those questions. Madam Speaker, I have one request. Sorry? And the gallery. Thank you for showing up today. Madam Speaker, I have one response to the 14 questions posed by the member. It's as follows. The government of Anguilla has acquired a building of strategic importance with its specific use yet to be finalized. Any decisions regarding the utilization of this building, as well as the operations and organizations of the processing facility, wherever it may be located, will be carefully considered and determined following additional stakeholder and public consultation slated to resume after the 2025 general elections.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sure you can imagine in response to 14 questions, that was a bit briefer than I anticipated. But for the purposes of clarification and getting the answers for my constituents as well as for the people of Anguilla, I do have a few supplementary questions I would like to ask, but perhaps one at a time, Madam Speaker. The first supplementary question being, the Honorable Minister, you would have indicated that government would have acquired the building for strategic purposes, its use yet to be finalized. However, in a government press conference, it was expressed that PDG had been contacted to outfit the building with the required equipment for the purposes of the building. If the use of the building has yet to be finalized, how was PDG able to be engaged, and how would they know what equipment would be in use in the building if we don't know the purpose of the building?
Thank you, Member. PDG was not engaged to outfit the building. They were engaged to give ideas of what can be utilized in 3 locations. And they would have given, in their opinion, how it would work for the 3 locations. To confirm, before you, I'm sure you have a follow-up question, no commitments of purchase were made. It's simply an estimate.
Thank you. You would have mentioned, Honorable Minister, that PDG would have
Please address
wanted
the
to
chair,
see-
members. Please address the chair.
Oh, sorry, Madam Speaker. Through you, Madam Speaker, to the Honorable Member, if PDG had been invited to look at the potential use cases of the building, would the Honorable Minister perhaps be able to share with us and the people of Anguilla what were some of the potential use cases of the building identified? Because if government would have made a strategic purchase, it means that you've identified a few areas. What were some of the factors or use cases that government identified as being strategic that would have guided the purchase? For clarity, was PDG brought to specifically look for the use case for a fish processing plant, or are you saying government was potentially looking to outfit it for other purposes? And if so, what are the other purposes that would have informed this purchase being a strategic one on behalf of government?
Member, the PDG would have, sorry, Madam Speaker, the PDG would have been asked to give feedback on 3 locations specific to processing.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the list of questions, I would have asked if any alternate locations were identified, as well as what were the factors that would have led to this one being selected for the intended use case. But in the member's response, she did not indicate. So as a supplementary, could the member please state what the alternate locations that were considered were, as well as why this one was the one selected in terms of being purchased? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I repeat my response for clarity. As I would have said in my response, there has been no commitment to any one location. The government of Anguilla has acquired a building of strategic importance with its specific use yet to be finalized. Any decisions regarding the utilization of this building, as well as the operations and organization of a processing facility, wherever it may be located, will be carefully considered and determined following additional stakeholder and public consultations slated to resume after the 2025 general elections.
So, sorry, Madam Speaker, again, through you, it would have been identified that there are some other, it could be used for other purposes. And I'm just asking, while I understand that that will be addressed in consultations after the general elections, for the purposes of the people of Anguilla, what were some of the use cases that government identified, even if not a fish processing plant, that would have identified this purchase or this building, the acquisition, being strategic?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The government of Anguilla has acquired a building of strategic importance with its specific use yet to be finalized. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, moving on, I would like to ask the Minister through you once more, were any consultations held with persons in the area of the vicinity of the building purchase regarding any of the potential use cases that government identified?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As stated in my comprehensive response, that any location and organization of the processing facility, wherever it may be located, will be carefully considered and determined following additional stakeholder and public consultations slated to resume after the 2025 general elections. Additional being the operative word here, Madam Speaker, and for the notice of this Honorable Assembly, there has been 4 consultations, stakeholder and public.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I believe the people of Anguilla would have heard the questions and the responses and will determine if they find it adequate. Thank you for your time. Thank you, member, for your responses.
Thank you, member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to respond.
Government statements on recent developments, none. Papers. Work permit exemption, great-grandchild of a person born in Anguilla Regulations 2025.
The Single Island-wide Electoral District member, Mr. Kenneth Hodge, is recognized.
Madam Speaker, good morning, and good morning to members of the public tuned in, and a special good morning, Madam Speaker, through you to the members in the gallery. Thank you for attending. Madam Speaker, I beg leave of this Honorable House to lay on the table the following document. Work permit exemption, great-grandchild of a person born in Anguilla Regulations 2025. Regulations made by the Minister under Section 1682 of the Labor Relations Act, RSA CL 7. Whereas Section 82E1 of the Constitution states the following: for the purposes of this Constitution, a person shall be regarded as an Anguillian if that person, E, has been granted Anguillian status by the Commission on the basis that that person, 1, is a great-grandchild of a person born in Anguilla and who is regarded as being an Anguillian by virtue of this Constitution, or is regarded as belonging to Anguilla by virtue of any previous constitution where the great-grandchild has resided in Anguilla for a continuous period of at least 5 years. Whereas the Minister responsible for Labor, with the approval of the Executive Council, decided that the great-grandchild of a person born in Anguilla, in accordance with this constitutional provision, should be allowed to work in Anguilla without obtaining a work permit until such time as that person attains Anguillian status. Now, therefore, in exercise of the power to exempt classes of persons from obtaining a work permit in accordance with Section 1682 of the Labor Relations Act, the Minister makes the following regulations. Great-grandchild exempted from obtaining a work permit. 1, subsection 1, the great-grandchild of a person born in Anguilla and who is regarded as being an Anguillian may be exempted from obtaining a work permit if that great-grandchild satisfies the policy requirements of the Minister. 2, where a great-grandchild has been exempted from obtaining a work permit, the Minister may issue that person with a work permit exemption certificate and may apply any term that he or she considers necessary. These regulations may be cited as a work permit exemption great-grandchild of a person born in Anguilla Regulations 2025, made by the Minister this 13th day of January 2025. Madam Speaker, if you may permit me, I would like to give a short explanation. So, Madam Speaker, when I came to office in 2020, there were quite a number of persons who have come to my office seeking clarity and assistance in terms of dealing with the issue of great-grandchildren. Because, Madam Speaker, under the current Immigration and Passport Act, these persons were all treated as visitors. And there was no provision in the Act, Madam Speaker, that allowed any visitor to be in Anguilla for any time exceeding 1 year at any one point in time. And so, Madam Speaker, I would have had discussions with the Chief Immigration Officer and the AG's chambers on how to address this situation. And Madam Speaker, I would have asked the Attorney General's chambers for an opinion, and he would have rendered an opinion, Madam Speaker, that allowed these great-grandchildren to continuously reside in Anguilla. And then, of course, the question arose, so while we are here for these 5 years, what do we do? And again, under the current regime, Madam Speaker, the only recourse was for them to obtain a work permit. And so they were told they could obtain work permits. And Madam Speaker, of course, work permits attract fees. And so what we were finding out, Madam Speaker, that a considerable number of these persons were essentially going into the underground economy where they were actually working illegally in breach of the law. And so, Madam Speaker, Executive Council, the ministry, we would have discussed it, and we decided, Madam Speaker, to grant them an exemption to allow them to work freely in Anguilla without the costs associated with a work permit. Because what the exemption really is, Madam Speaker, is a work permit minus the fees. And so on the 13th of January, Madam Speaker, we would have taken this step to undertake this. And a bit later in this proceedings, Madam Speaker, I will be bringing back another bit of legislation on another immigration issue. So, Madam Speaker, that's the short version of this, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Reports from committees, none. Petitions, none. Government notices, none. Private members' notices, none. Motions. Motion 1, 2025-512 HOA, approval of customs, exemption of customs duties on food items, regulations 2025.
The Honorable Member for Island Harbor is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning to the members of the House, staff, clerk, and to the members in the gallery, and to Anguillians listening and watching on different platforms. Motion 1/2025, customs exemption of customs duties on food items, regulation 2025. Whereas Section 76 of the Customs Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter C-169, enables the Governor and Council to make regulations in relation to tariff rates. Whereas the Governor and Council did make those regulations on the 10th of January 2025, and whereas Section 76 of the Customs Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter C-169, provides that the regulations may not take effect until it's approved by resolution of the House of Assembly, and whereas those regulations are set out in the schedule hereto, be it resolved that under 76 of the Customs Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter C-169, the House of Assembly approved the regulations set out in the schedule.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that this resolution would be passed by resolution of the House of Assembly this 28th day of January 2025. And Madam Speaker, this customs exemption regulations in April of 2022, Madam Speaker, given COVID, increased cost of shipping, supply chain issues. In February of 2022, there was the start of the war in Ukraine. The cost of food items had gone up significantly. Madam Speaker, this was prior to implementation of goods and service tax. So, just for the record, it was decided at that time, it's a policy of this administration, to remove customs duties from certain food items. And these are essential food items, Madam Speaker, which includes rice, sugar, flour, chicken, milk, preparations for infant use, fresh or chilled vegetables, canned vegetables, fresh or chilled fruits, canned fruits, fish, eggs, and bread. That these items, Madam Speaker, were deemed to have no duties from April of 2027, and they tend to expire at the end of each year. Madam Speaker, the regulations would have expired on the 31st of December 2024, and these regulations we want to continue to control the cost of these essential food items, and therefore this was then taken to Executive Council for the extension, and Her Excellency the Governor signed on January the acting governor signed on the 10th day of January 2025, and this is to have the House consider for approval for the duty-free concessions to continue on essential food items. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Motion 1, 2025-512 HOA has been moved and seconded. The floor is open for contributions to this motion. Since there are no contributions, I invite the mover to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank the members of the House for understanding the importance of continuing the duty exemptions on these essential items, and certainly with the implementation of the Junior Shield, which covers children under the age of 6, we certainly would want to make sure that the infant feedings and preparations continue to not attract duty, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion 1, 2025-512 HOA has been presented without amendment. Members, the question is that this motion be passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Motion 1, 2025-512 HOA has been passed without amendment and is now a resolution of the Assembly.
Motion 2, 2025-512 HOA, Customs Duty and Tax Exemption. Motion 2, 2025-512 HOA, Regulations 2025, New Anguilla University.
The Honourable Member for Island Harbour is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Customs Duty and Tax Exemption, Motion 2/2025-512 HOA Regulations 2025. The resolution made by the House of Assembly under Section 77, subsection 1 of the Customs Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter C-169, and Section 3 of the Excise Tax Amendment Act 2020 was proposed and will be seconded in the House of Assembly on the 28th day of January 2025. And whereas a certificate of good standing that had not expired or been canceled was produced to the Minister of Finance in relation to the importers, be it resolved that under the powers contained in Section 77, subsection 1 of the Customs Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter 169, and Section 3 of the Excise Tax Amendment Act 2020, the House of Assembly exempts from customs duty and excise tax the goods imported into Anguilla specified in the schedule. 1. The following conditions apply in respect of all goods exempted by virtue of this resolution. A. The goods shall not within 5 years of the date of importation be sold, exchanged, given away, or applied to any use other than the use specified in the schedule. B. On the expiry of 6 months from the date of importation and each successive 6-month period within the 5-year period after the date of importation, the importer shall certify to the Controller of Customs in a form acceptable to the Controller of Customs that he has complied with the conditions set out in paragraph A. C. upon demand made by a customs officer, the goods exempted under this resolution shall be produced or otherwise accounted for to the customs officer. And D, in accordance with the Customs Administrative Cost Recovery Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter 170, at the time of import, the importer shall pay the customs administrative charge at the rate specified in the schedule. 2, in accordance with Section 71 of the Customs Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter 169, following apply in the event that a condition referred to in Section 1 of this resolution is contravened or not complied with. A, if any of the goods exempted under this resolution are sold, exchanged, given away, or applied to any use other than the use specified in the schedule within 5 years of the date of importation, 1, the importer shall pay the customs duty and excise tax on the value of such goods at the rate specified in the integrated customs tariff at the date of importation. 2, the importer and any person knowingly concerned in such sale, exchange, gift, or unsanctioned use is guilty of an offense and may be arrested and is liable to a fine of $20,000 or 3 times the customs duty, excise tax, relieved, whichever is the greater, or to imprisonment for a term of 2 years or to both. And 3, the goods in respect of which the exemption was granted are liable to forfeiture. B, if the importer fails to certify that he has not sold, exchanged, given away, or applied the goods to any use other than the use specified in the schedule, 1, the importer shall produce or account for the goods exempted under this resolution to the Comptroller of Customs. 2, any goods not produced or accounted for will be deemed to have been sold, exchanged, given away, or applied to some use other than the use specified in the schedule. And paragraph A, subsection 1 applied. And 3, if any goods not produced or accounted for or subsequently found, they are liable to forfeiture. C, if the importer fails to produce or account for the goods exempted under this resolution upon demand by a customs officer, 1, the importer and any person knowingly concerned in such failure are guilty of an offense and may be arrested and are liable to a fine of $20,000 or 3 times the value of the goods, whichever is the greater, or to imprisonment for a term of 2 years or to both. And 2, if any goods not produced or accounted for or subsequently found, they are liable to forfeiture. D, if the importer fails to pay the customs administrative fee at the rate specified in the schedule at the expiry of 30 days from the date of delivery of a demand for payment made by the Comptroller of Customs, or such longer period as may be designated by the Comptroller of Customs, 1, the importer shall pay the customs duty and the excise tax on the value of such goods at the rate specified in the integrated customs tariff at the date of importation. 2, the importer and any person knowingly concerned in such failure are guilty of an offense and may be arrested and are liable to a fine of $20,000 or 3 times the value of the goods, whichever is the greater, or to imprisonment for a term of 2 years or to both. And 3, the goods exempted under this resolution are liable to forfeiture.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this motion is to grant duty concessions to New Anguilla University, which is for medical education services. New Anguilla University is a new medical school that has a campus in George Hill and at the Rogers complex. And this, Madam Speaker, as part of the Memorandum of Understanding where concessions are granted, for those concessions, we negotiated with New Anguilla University that they would provide scholarships for all Anguillian students that want to study for a medical degree at the institution. And I think they should be commended for that, Madam Speaker, because they have not put a limit to how much new doctors we can have that are Anguillian that would attend this university. And with that, they have asked for concessions on certain items to have set up the medical school campus, Madam Speaker, including having human skulls, having models for training and teaching, and office supplies, suture kits to train the students how to suture wounds, Madam Speaker, which is important as they learn here. And the intention is that they not only do the preclinical training here, which is usual for medical schools on this island, but they can also go on to do the clinical years, which is the third and fourth year in Anguilla. And then also, Madam Speaker, that they have asked that we then make arrangements with their help to have specialists so that the students can also do internships and residencies in Anguilla in the specialties that have been prioritized. So, Madam Speaker, we look forward to this continued collaboration with New Anglia University. We look forward, there's listed items in the schedule, and we ask that the House considers approving these duty concessions for New Anglia University Medical School at the period for importation October 10, 2024 to October 9, 2025, and that the 5% administrative charge will be paid, and the duty and tax loss $13,017.42 EC. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Motion 2, 2025-512 HOA has been moved and seconded. The floor is now open for debate. The Honorable Member for Road South is recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise in full support of this duty-free concession and recognizing the fact that we have yet another great medical school coming to our shores. And it underscores the leadership of the Honorable Premier to go out there and to encourage and to facilitate business and business development in Anguilla, and especially in terms of education and the thrust thereof, whether it be in the medical field or otherwise. And I just want to applaud Dr. Webster and his leadership in ensuring that we have not only this medical school, but other medical schools and such facilities lined up to come to our shores in the not too distant future, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Any other contributions? Since there are no other contributions, I invite the mover to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I appreciate and certainly want to thank the members for understanding the need for these types of concessions, not only to attract these knowledge-based industries, but other business opportunities which provide jobs and also provide training for our people in terms of developing human capacity. And to know that through our memorandum of understanding, since this administration came in, we've insisted on social obligations by these investors and developers. And also, Madam Speaker, we insist that they have to sign bonds or put money in escrow so that if they have to use a foreign contractor, that if they use our local subcontractors, that they must be paid before the foreign contractor leaves our shores. And Madam Speaker, we find that this has been very effective in ensuring that issues such as happened with other companies that left without paying and left our people holding the bag, that this now has been limited. So again, I want to thank the members for understanding this need and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Motion 2, 2025-512 HOA has been debated without amendment. Members, the question is that this motion be passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Motion 2, 2025-512 HOA has been passed without amendment and is now a resolution of the Assembly.
Motion 3 of 2025 5/12 HOA, approval of elections registration amendment regulations 2025.
The honorable member is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, motion 3/2025 Elections Registration Amendment Regulations 2025. Whereas Section 103, subsection 2 of the Elections Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter E31, provides that any regulations made under said act shall be laid before the House of Assembly as soon as may be after they are made, and shall not continue in force after the expiration of 7 days from the time when they are laid, unless a resolution is passed by the House of Assembly providing for the continuance of the regulations. And whereas the Elections Registration Amendment Regulations 2025 set out in the schedule hereto, made under Section 103 of the Elections Act, was signed by the Governor on 21 January 2025 and laid before the House on 28 January 2025. Be it resolved that under Section 103.2 of the Elections Act, Revised Statutes of Anguilla, Chapter E31, the House of Assembly approves the regulations set out in the schedule.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this Elections Registration Amendment Regulations 2025, as signed by Her Excellency the Governor on the 21st day of January 2025, lays out that the work done on Election Day by electoral officers is paid appropriately. And prior, Madam Speaker, the returning officers, since the regulations list numbers, I will lay out what these payments are for, Madam Speaker. The work done on Election Day polls, electoral officers were paid returning officer $1,125 EC, the presiding officer $1,050 EC, and the poll clerk $600 EC. Madam Speaker, this was to cover just 1 day's work, since the officers, the electoral officers, work for 2 days, with the general election day and then the advanced polling day, which is done before the general election. As in this case, the general election will be on the 26th of February 2025, and the advanced polling for those who are 70 years and older, the essential workers such as police officers, doctors, nurses, and other essential workers would be done by an advanced polling, and later on there will be persons added to that list who can vote in the early voting, Madam Speaker. This regulations is to allow an uplift in what these officers are paid. So it is proposed that electoral officers be paid an additional 50% of Election Day polls remuneration for work done on the advanced day polls. And so, per the regulations, a returning officer would be receiving $1,687.50, a presiding officer $1,575, and a poll clerk $900. Don't all run now and join the electoral officers group. They are very well vetted, Madam Speaker, and so the Supervisor of Elections, I'm sure, will thank us for ensuring that the workers who do a great job, that they are compensated. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Motion 3, 2025-512 HOA has been moved and seconded. The floor is now open for contributions to this motion. Since there are no contributions, I ask the mover to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And certainly want to thank the members for appreciating the work that is done by the electoral officers, and that the small increase in compensation certainly doesn't represent the work that they do, but it's just to show them that the extra day's work is compensated. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Motion 3, 2025-512 HOA has been presented without amendment. Members, the question is that this motion be passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Motion 3, 2025-512 HOA has been passed without amendment and is now a resolution of the Assembly.
Personal explanations, none. Other business, government business. A bill for Anguilla Community College Amendment Act 2024, second reading.
The Honourable Member for Valley South is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill shortly entitled A Bill for Anguilla Community College Amendment Act have its second reading.
Madam Speaker, I second.
Madam Speaker, the Anguilla Community College operations are governed under the Anguilla Community College Act, and the Act is establishing the institution which operated from 2008. Since that time, the Anguilla Community College Act has only had minimal amendments, but the needs of the Anguilla Community College have changed over the course of the years and requires significant amendments. The current wording of the Anguilla Community College Act restricts the college in the function of sealing of documents such as transcripts, certificates, and official documents from the Office of the President, and makes the college over-reliant on the single post of the registrar. If the proposed amendments allow for the college to continue to function effectively if for some reason the registrar is unavailable. It will also allow for the registrar to focus solely on registrar duties. Collating all human resource and management functions under the human resource officer allows for more effective management of these functions, as they were previously spread across different portfolios. The amendments to the function of the college, the academic divisions, staffing, and governance will all improve the efficiency and aims to ensure that all students are provided with a college that meets their needs. The objects and reasons of this bill are to amend the ACC College Act. Clause 1 is to amend the interpretation section of the bill. Clause 2 replaces the title of Director of Finance and Administrative Studies to Director of Finance. Clause 3 allows for members of the senior management team, in addition to the registrar, to be a custodian of the college seal and to authenticate all documents required to be sealed. Clause 4 removes the age qualifications on the provision of full and part-time education by the college. Clause 5 amends Section 11 to change the frequency of board meetings. Clause 6 removes the responsibility of Secretary to the Board of Governors from the Office of the Registrar. Clause 7 adds Human Resource Manager to the list of staff members specified in Section 19 of the Act. Clause 8 specifies who may act in the position of President in the temporary absence of the President of the College. Clause 9 removes Human Resource and Registry functions from the post of Director of Finance. Clause 10 removes the responsibility of marketing and public relations from the duties of the registrar. Clause 9 amends Section 24 to reorganize the academic divisions of the college, and Clause 12 provides the citation. Therefore, request, Madam Speaker, that this bill receive its second reading.
Thank you, Member. A bill for the Anguilla Community College Amendment Act 2024 has been moved and seconded. I now invite debate on the merits and principles of this bill. Since there are no contributions, I invite the mover to respond, please.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I will take the lack of contributions as the general support of the entire House of Assembly, including opposition and government side, for the amendments to this bill. As I would have stated in the description of the objects and reasons for this bill, Madam Speaker, there were many instances in which the registrar of the college was required to fulfill the substantive role of nearly 4 other jobs, therefore creating a situation in which inefficiency was a common issue at the college. These amendments, Madam Speaker, speak to our ability to actually make the Anguilla Community College a fit-for-purpose institution to meet the needs of our students and to ensure that the responsibilities undertaken by persons in professional roles are able to be actioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Anguilla Community College Amendment Act 2024 be now read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
An act to amend the Anguilla Community College Act, RSA CA 61.
Under Rule 45 of the House of Assembly Rules of Procedure 2021, the bill now stands referred to a committee of the whole Assembly to be considered clause by clause. Assembly in committee.
Clauses 1 to 12.
Madam Chair. I beg to move that the bill for Anguilla Community College Amendment Act be amended by deleting 2024 wherever it appears and substituting it with 2025.
Madam Speaker, I second.
Chair. It has been moved and seconded. Yes, thank you, member. That a bill for Anguilla Community College Amendment Act 2024, wherever 2024 appears in the bill, to be substituted by 2025. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Bill amended to reflect 2025 and to replace 2024. I put the question that clauses 1 to 12 do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The title as amended and the enacting clause.
I put the question that the title as amended and the enacting clause do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The Assembly will now resume its sitting. The mover may report.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill for I beg to report that a bill shortly entitled the Anguilla Community College Amendment Act 2024 has moved through committee stage with amendments and is ready for its third reading.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
I'll continue, member. Move for passage.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill shortly entitled Anguilla Community College Amendment Act 2024 have its third reading.
Can you move? Can you second?
Sorry. Madam Speaker, I rise to second. Thank you.
Thank you, members. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Anguilla Community College Amendment Act, now 2025, be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
An act to amend the Anguilla Community College Act, RSA CA 61.
Bill read a third time and passed.
A bill for parole of prisoners Amendment Act 2025, second reading.
The Honorable Attorney General is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I begged to move that a bill for the Parole of Prisoners Amendment Act 2025 be read a second time.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
Madam Speaker, this is not a very long bill. The objects and reasons for this bill are basically very short. I will just go through the objects and reasons, and then I will expand a bit more in terms of the further details of the bill. This bill seeks to amend the Parole of Prisoners Act to allow for the imposition of electronic monitoring as a condition for parole. It specifies the grounds under which such monitoring can be imposed in relation to adults and children. It also creates an offense of tampering with, destroying, or allowing the monitor to be depleted of energy. A person who tampers with or destroys a monitor worn by a person on parole also commits an offense under this bill. And lastly, as stated in the objects and reasons, the bill amends the definition of a child to mean a person who is under the age of 18. If I may just expand a little bit more on the bill, and basically the amendments to the Parole of Prisoners Act seeks to introduce the use of electronic monitoring as a condition attached to the release of a prisoner on license. Where the court or the board or the governor is considering an application for parole, which is a type of release on license, a determination has to be made as to whether such person can be released safely on license as a part of their reintegration into society. The utilization of electronic monitors will give the board or the governor or the court, as the case may be, greater confidence when releasing prisoners, and these monitors can be used as a mechanism for monitoring the behavior or actions of such persons. Madam Speaker, as such, this bill amends the Parole of Prisoners Act to allow for the electronic monitoring to be imposed as a condition for parole. It specifies the grounds under which such monitoring can be imposed in relation to adults and children. For adults, electronic monitoring will only be imposed for a period not to exceed 18 months in the first instance. In relation to children, an electronic monitoring order shall not be imposed on a child who is under the age of 12 years. Where the child is 12 years or over, the court must also be satisfied that the use of electronic monitoring is suitable in the case for that particular child. Furthermore, an electronic monitoring order in relation to a child shall not be made for a period exceeding 12 months in the first instance. And as might have been dealt with very briefly in the objects and reasons which I dealt with, the bill also creates an offense of tampering with, destroying, or allowing the monitor to be depleted of energy. A person who tampers with or destroys a monitor worn by a person on parole also commits an offense under this piece of legislation. Lastly, Madam Speaker, the bill amends the definition of child to mean a person who is under the age of 18. And I should state and emphasize that the use of electronic monitoring is not to be utilized as a punitive measure or to be viewed as a punitive measure. It is simply that electronic monitoring is intended to be used to ensure compliance with specific conditions attached to a release on license. Madam Speaker, I don't think I need to say anything further in relation to this bill, and I commend the bill to this House.
Thank you, Honorable Member. A bill for parole of prisoners, Amendment Act 2025, has been moved and seconded. The floor is now open for contributions to this bill. Since there are no contributions, I invite the mover to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the honorable members for this obvious support for this bill.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Parole of Prisoners Amendment Act 2025 be now read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
An act to amend the Parole of Prisoners Act to allow for the imposition of an electronic monitoring order for persons on parole.
Under Rule 45 of the House of Assembly Rules of Procedure 2021, the bill now stands referred to a committee of the whole Assembly to be considered clause by clause. Assembly in committee.
Clauses 1 to 7.
I put the question that clauses 1 to 7 do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The title and the enacting clause.
I put the question that the title and the enacting clause do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The Assembly will now resume its sitting. The honorable member may report.
Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill entitled the Parole of Prisoners Amendment Act 2025 has passed through committee without amendment and is now ready for its third reading.
Madam Speaker, I raise a second.
Parole of Prisoners Amendment Act 2025, third reading.
You may move for passage, member.
I raise a second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Parole of Prisoners Amendment Act 2025 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
An act to amend the Parole of Prisoners Act to allow for the imposition of an electronic monitoring order for persons on parole.
Bill read a third time and passed.
A bill for Probation Amendment Act 2025, second reading.
The Honourable Member for Valley South is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill shortly entitled Probation Amendment Act 2025 be read a second time. Madam Speaker, the objects and the reasons for this bill. This bill amends the Probation Act to allow for the imposition of electronic monitoring as a condition for probation. It specifies the grounds under which such monitoring can be imposed in relation to adults and children. It also creates an offense of tampering with, destroying, or allowing the monitor to be depleted of energy. A person who tampers with or destroys a monitor worn by a person on probation also commits an offense under this bill. Lastly, this bill amends the definition of a child to mean a person who is under the age of 18. Madam Speaker, just to provide some further information on this bill, the proposed legislative amendments under the Probation Amendment Act are to enable the implementation of electronic monitoring to enhance the supervision and management of offenders within our communities. Electronic monitoring, Madam Speaker, has been proven to be an effective offender management tool in multiple jurisdictions, contributing significantly to the efficiency of criminal justice systems. For instance, electronic monitoring enables effective monitoring of individuals on bail, reducing the number of offenders who are remanded on custody pre-trial. Jurisdictions such as the United Kingdom and Canada have reported success in decreasing pre-trial detention rates by using electronic monitoring to enforce bail conditions. This not only alleviates the burden on correctional facilities, but also helps maintain family and community ties for offenders awaiting trial. Electronic monitoring also has been adopted in countries like Sweden and New Zealand to aid the rehabilitation and reintegration of offenders by allowing them to be monitored in their communities under supervision. It also supports their access to rehabilitation programs, which reduces recidivism. And of course, recidivism is the risk of reoffending post-trial. The data also shows, Madam Speaker, that in the US, electronic monitoring has been proven to be a cost-effective method of monitoring offenders compared to incarceration. By reducing the reliance on human resources for direct supervision, electronic monitoring enhances the safety of our probation officers, our law enforcement officers, and the broader communities within which they operate. Madam Speaker, with the increasing incidence of gang and gun crime, electronic monitoring serves as a critical tool for managing high-risk offenders, whether they be on parole or otherwise. Similar programs in South Africa and Jamaica have allowed probation and law enforcement officers to monitor offenders without being exposed to dangerous settings and ensuring the public safety at the same time. This electronic monitoring system, Madam Speaker, is particularly effective for ensuring compliance with curfews, exclusion zones, and other court-ordered conditions, which, previous to its implementation, are very difficult to monitor. Alerts generated by breaches can be directed to our centralized emergency control center and enable timely intervention. This approach, which aligns with practices in Australia and Germany, enhances the ability to deter breaches on bail and probation conditions. The rollout of electronic monitoring will be integrated with the launch of our new 24/7 911 control center. Alerts from electronic tags will be monitored by the control center staff, who will follow established protocols to determine whether law enforcement intervention is required. This ensures a streamlined and coordinated response, improving the overall efficiency of offender management.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now invite debate on the merits and principles of this bill. Floor is open for contributions. The Honorable Member for Island Harbor is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand in support of this Probation Amendment Act 2025. And you can see from the previous bill and this and the one to follow that these amendments ought to assist, and these are the acts previously passed with electronic monitoring, especially of our juvenile offenders, Madam Speaker. And now you know throughout this, the term of this administration, we have brought the Child Justice Act with amendments, probation. Also, Madam Speaker, we recently opened the Joint Emergency Control Center that is monitored by trained officers for 911 calls, for marine emergencies, and also the monitoring will be performed by these trained individuals, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the amendments are very clear. Basically, these monitors will be applied to juvenile offenders, age of 12 to 18, 3 months in the first instance, and then the court would have to be engaged for any extension. This is so that juvenile offenders do not need to necessarily be incarcerated, and those who are in the establishments such as the Zenator home can be allowed to be outside and out, and they'll be monitored to know where they are and what's happening. There certainly will be limited range where these offenders can be. And also, as the amendment notes, they'll be allowed to visit the churches or whatever their religious affiliation is, attend educational institutions, be able to participate in work activities if they do work, Madam Speaker. So this, Madam Speaker, allows the young offenders to be able to be out, but their whereabouts known. And I think that this is an important step forward as we do rehabilitation, try to reduce recidivism, young people returning to prison or to areas where they're or incarcerated. We also want to use this as a deterrent, Madam Speaker, so that our young persons who may run afoul of the law, that they understand that these restrictions are necessary when they do. But it also means, Madam Speaker, that a holistic approach is being implemented here in Anguilla, especially for young offenders. And as the member for Valley South said, we're concerned about the increase in gun crime and violence and gang activity. And we know that in this House there was a committee set up and there were recommendations made, and we are taking steps to implement those recommendations, Madam Speaker. This being one way that we can start in the right direction. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member for Valley South for making sure that this electronic monitoring is implemented in our island. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Are there any other contributions to this bill? Since there are no other contributions, I invite the mover to respond, please.
Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill shortly entitled...
What?
Sorry? Sorry. I want to thank all the members for their contributions, those who have contributed and those who have remained silent. And I would like to also thank my hardworking staff in the Department of Probation for their continuous work. Of course, right now we are celebrating 20 years of second chances under the Department of Probation. And it is a great honor, Madam Speaker, to say that the Department of Probation has had way more successes than it has had failures. And I think that that speaks to the importance of the department within our community. That persons who come into contact with them, who decide that they want to change their lives, are given an opportunity to do so, and that they can form a part of this society that we call Anguilla. Because at the end of the day, we talk about how small Anguilla is, we talk about how small our society is, but we don't take our reasoning to the next level. If we decide that the way we want to treat persons who come into conflict with the law as outcasts, where do they go other than inside this society? They all have to come back into this very same society. And so it is our obligation, Madam Speaker, and it is the mandate and the work that the Department of Probation has been doing for countless years that has brought us to this point. And I want to thank them publicly. I want to thank them for their work and, of course, for the work that we continue to do as we pursue new initiatives, in the next after the next general election. The rebuilding of the Nader Haven, which is a juvenile center for young offenders, to rebuild it, to repurpose it, make it fit for purpose, so that we can ensure that young people who are in conflict with the law are actually given the necessary interventions that they need to restart and come again. So thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much to those listening.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Probation Amendment Act 2025 be now read a second time. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. I now call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
An act to amend the Probation Act to allow for the imposition of an electronic monitoring order for persons on probation.
Under Rule 45 of the House of Assembly, Rules of Procedure 2021, the bill now stands referred to a committee of the whole Assembly to be considered clause by clause. Assembly in committee.
Clauses 1 to 10.
I put the question that clauses 1 to 10 do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The title and the enacting clause.
I put the question that the title and the enacting clause do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The Assembly will now resume its sitting. You may report.
Okay, Madam Speaker, I now beg to report that the bill shortly entitled Probation Amendment Act 2025 has passed through committee without amendment and is now ready for its third reading.
Probation Amendment Act 2025, third reading.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill entitled Probation Amendment Act 2025 be read a third time and passed.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Probation Amendment Act 2025 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
An act to amend the Probation Act to allow for the imposition of an electronic monitoring order for persons on probation.
Bill read a third time and passed.
A Bill for Bail Amendment Act 2025, second reading.
The Honorable Attorney General is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill for the Bail Amendment Act 2025 be read a second time.
Madam Speaker, I rise a second.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, this is not a very long bill, and the objects and reasons are stated that the bill amends the Bail Act to allow for the imposition of electronic monitoring as a condition for bail. It specifies the grounds under which such monitoring can be imposed in relation to adults and children. It also creates an offense of tampering with, destroying, or allowing the monitor to be depleted of energy. A person who tampers with or destroys a monitor worn by a person on bail also commits an offense under this bill. Lastly, the bill deletes the definition of juvenile and amends the definition of child to mean a person who is under the age of 18. And if I can just expand a bit now, having gone through the stated objects and reasons, basically the amendments to the Bail Act seek to introduce the use of electronic monitoring as a condition attached to a bail order. When a suspect is charged and awaiting trial or convicted and awaiting sentence, a bail application may be made to the court for the release of such persons on bail. The court will normally deny bail, an application for bail, where the court is not convinced that the applicant will comply with bail conditions, such as, for example, not interfering with witnesses or refraining from attending at a particular location. With the introduction of electronic monitoring, in the circumstances I mentioned before, the court may be more inclined to grant bail with the condition that a person wears an electronic monitor, if, of course, that option is open to the court. And when this bill becomes law, then that option will be available to the court. As such, this bill amends the Bail Act to allow for the imposition of electronic monitoring as a condition for bail. It specifies the grounds on which such monitoring can be imposed in relation to adults and children. For adults, electronic monitoring will only be imposed as a condition for bail where the court is satisfied that without an electronic monitoring order, the person would not be granted bail. In relation to children, an electronic monitoring order shall not be imposed on a child who is under the age of 12 years. Where the child is 12 years or older, the court must also be satisfied that the use of electronic monitoring is suitable in each case for any particular child. Additionally, this order may only be imposed on a child where, one, the child is charged with or has been convicted of a violent or sexual offense, or an offense punishable in the case of an adult with imprisonment for a term of 14 years or more, or where the child is charged with or has been convicted of one or more imprisonable offenses and has a recent history of repeatedly committing such offenses whilst remanded on bail. And as I had stated in the previous bill, The same is applicable in this particular bill as well, and that is that the use of electronic monitoring is not to be utilized as a punitive measure. And I can't help but emphasizing that aspect of this legislation. Electronic monitoring is intended to be used to ensure compliance with other specific conditions attached to the bail order. This bill also creates an offense of tampering with, destroying, or allowing the monitor to be depleted of energy. And a person who tampers with or destroys a monitor worn by a person on bail also commits an offense under this legislation. Lastly, this bill deletes the definition of juvenile and amends the definition of child to mean a person who is under the age of 18. Madam Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
Thank you, Honourable Member. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Bail Amendment Act 2025 be submitted to this House for debate. I now invite contributions for this bill. The Honourable Member for Valley South is recognized.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I intend to make my contribution very short, just to highlight to the persons who are listening and those in the gallery that these pieces of legislation all form part of a suite of legislation to enable the implementation of electronic monitoring for persons who are juveniles and those who are adults. So if you see that there are some common themes across the pieces of legislation introduced by the Attorney General and by myself from the Probation Act, parole, and bail, it is because they all form part of the suite that enables us to be able to ensure that electronic monitoring can be pursued. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other contributions, please? Since there are no other contributions, I invite the mover to respond, please.
Speaker, it's just left for me to thank the Honourable Member for the support of the bill and as well as I suspect the implied support by all the other members in the House. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Bail Amendment Act 2025 be now read a second time. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
An act to amend the Bail Act to permit the use of electronic monitoring for persons on bail.
Under Rule 45 of the House of Assembly Rules of Procedure 2021, the bill now stands referred to a Committee of the Whole Assembly to be considered clause by clause. Assembly in committee.
Clauses 1 to 8.
I put the question that clauses 1 to 8 do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The title and the enacting clause.
I put the question that the title and the enacting clause do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The Assembly will now resume its sitting. You may report, sir.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill shortly entitled the Bail Amendment Act 2025 has passed through committee without amendment and is ready for its third reading.
Bail Amendment Act 2025, third reading.
You may move for passage, member.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill shortly entitled the Bail Amendment Act 2025 be read a third time and passed.
Madam Speaker, I raise a second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill entitled A Bill for Bail Amendment Act 2025 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
An act to amend the Bail Act to permit the use of electronic monitoring for persons on bail.
Bill read a third time and passed.
A bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025, first reading.
The Honorable Single Island White Electoral District Member, Mr. Kenneth Hodge, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill shortly entitled A Bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025 be read a first time.
Madam Speaker, I raise a second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025 be read a first time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a first time.
An act to amend the Elections Act, RSAC E31.
Bill read a first time.
A bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025, second reading.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill shortly entitled A Bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025 be read a second time.
Madam Speaker, I second.
Madam Speaker, permit me to briefly outline some of the objects and reasons for this bill, and I'm just going to highlight, Madam Speaker, the salient ones. Madam Speaker, part of the amendment this morning adds domestic observers to the list of persons permitted to be present in polling stations on election day. It also removes reference to blind and illiterate voters and replaces it with more modern language to say they require assistance to enable them to vote. Madam Speaker, the amendment also expands the list of persons who are allowed to vote at an advanced poll by virtue of their profession, and in particular, Madam Speaker, we are looking at fire and prison officers as well as lab technicians, Madam Speaker. And then part of the amendment, a very important amendment, it amends Section 68, which currently provides that the House of Assembly or a polling station in a single member electoral district may be designated as a place to conduct the counting of votes. This amendment, Madam Speaker, gives the supervisor of elections added discretion in designating an additional place to conduct the counting of votes other than the two options that I would have just provided. Another amendment, Madam Speaker, removes reference to blind and illiterate voters and replaces it with more modern language to say they require assistance to enable them to vote. And Madam Speaker, this amendment also amends a number of forms, Madam Speaker, to update them to more modern readings. Madam Speaker, in a nutshell, that is an outline of what this amendment seeks to do, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025 be considered. The floor is open for contributions to this bill. The Honorable Single Island White Electoral District Member Mr. Joseph Antapool is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning once again. Madam Speaker, the Supervisor of Elections as well as the Governor would have met with all of the elected members of the House of Assembly, as well as all persons interested who have expressed at least their intent to contest the 2025 general elections to go through the changes that are before us today, Madam Speaker. Changes of which I fundamentally have no issue with. As the member would have stated though, Clause 9 amends Schedule 2 of the bill which deals with certain forms. And when looking at Form number 9, Form 9 was amended to just create provision for the single island-wide members to be able to have a nomination form separate to that of the district candidates. One thing I noticed, however, Madam Speaker, is this may be an opportunity just to amend the language a bit slightly just to make it more gender neutral, because I will note that the nomination paper for both the single island-wide as well as the single member electoral district reads, "We, the undersigned voters for electoral district number or island-wide, do hereby nominate the following person as a proper person to serve as a member of the House of Assembly for the electoral district or single island-wide district." And it ends, "And we certify to the best of our belief, he is qualified for election as a member of the House of Assembly." So persons will be having to sign that he is qualified. And we know, Madam Speaker, you yourself being an astute woman, as well as having female representatives on both sides of the aisle, and potentially soon to have the first female premier, I would suggest that we amend this to make it more inclusive so that we don't have to be revisiting for such a small task. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Member for Road South is recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I am happy to note that the single island-wide member, Mr. Joseph Van der Poel, saw in his vision board that either Gleneva Hodge, Quincy Gomes Marie, or Deanne Kentish Rogers in 2030 will be the first female premier of Anguilla.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker, I don't believe I ever said that. I'm not sure where the member would have gotten that.
Madam Speaker, unlike the visionless one in North Hill, the single island-wide member said soon to be first female premier in Anguilla. So I can only assume that he's referencing either Gleneva Hodge, Deanne Kentish Rogers, or Quincy Gomes Marie in 2030, because the Constitution allows for the premier to serve 2 consecutive terms. And after Dr. Ellis Lorenzo Webster served his 2nd consecutive term following the next general election, you know he cannot serve as premier beyond 2030 with immediacy. So I can only assume that the single island-wide member, Mr. Joseph Van der Poel, is referencing either the Honorable Deanne Kentish Rogers, the Honorable Quincy Gomes Marie, or the soon-to-be Honorable Gleneva Hodge. Be that as it may, Madam Speaker, I would also like to educate my learned friend on the other side of the divide that in the Anguilla Constitution order, there's reference to the governor. And throughout the Constitution, it speaks to him and her, and not him. Not her. Him and he. In no point in the Constitution did I see a reference to her. And that is quite strange, because the now leader of the opposition was the Minister of Constitutional Affairs and had the opportunity to amend the Constitution in 2019 and did not see it fit to ensure that reference are made to she and her. And I say that with the fact that on coming to office in 2015, the opposition, now opposition, which was the Anguilla United Front, came to office seeing a female governor in that of Her Excellency, Ms. Christina Scott. And as fate wouldn't have it, in the lead up to the 2020 general election, the Honorable Joseph Van der Poel, who was then the Honorable Joseph Van der Poel, was designated the assignment of looking at further constitutional amendment, even in that late stage, Madam Speaker. And it was stated in Pastor Philip Gomes's church that he was a lead as it relates to the Constitution, dealing with Paul Candler and the team. That's a matter of fact, Madam Speaker.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker, the assertions made by the member aren't entirely correct. So for the sake of clarification, at that point in time, when the Anguilla was negotiating with the United Kingdom government with respect to constitutional reform, Anguilla had a team that comprised membership to include the leader of the governing party at the moment, the leader of government business at the time, as well as representation from the leadership of every political party, as well as from the Bar Association, the religious bodies on island, and I served as the person who facilitated. I was not charged with investigating further constitutional advancements. That was far beyond my remit, Madam Speaker. I solely did as you are doing as a presiding officer and facilitated the conversation between the two parts.
Madam Speaker, there he verifies what I just said. Because at no point did I say he was charged with any investigation. I said that he was a lead. That is my exact language. And I stand firm in saying that he was a lead. I can quite recall that the honorable member for Sandy Hill had to stand up in the church and bail him out because he either spoke wrongly, misspoke, or intentionally spoke about a particular clause that the British at the time was enforcing on the people of Anguilla. But that is not the debate today, Madam Speaker. I thought that this would have been quite uncontroversial, as the member stated, as both members stated. But you know, one of the surrogates of the Anguilla United Front, one Mr. Thomas Kelly, continues, Madam Speaker, to publish lies on behalf of the party. And I want to bring it up, Madam Speaker, and the reason why I want to bring it up is because it's out there, and I have it in my possession, and I shared it, Madam Speaker. And Mr. Kelly wrote this morning, Anguilla, be aware that Premier Ellis Webster is going to the House of Assembly today to pass a bill that lowers time to attain pension for individuals that served in government from 10 years to 9.5 years, Madam Speaker. He went on to say, why? Because the elections in Anguilla is occurring on February 26. His Speaker of the House, Madam Speaker, his Speaker of the House won't attain her pension once the APM loses the upcoming election, as she would have to serve her full term, which ends the latter part of June. So to ensure that a Speaker of the House receives a pension, the Premier is using his power to ensure a paycheck for her on the backs of the hard-working Anguillians. Anguilla was never about you, Madam Speaker.
Member, can we just ignore propaganda and stick to the bill?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for allowing me the opportunity to read the entire text of that piece of propaganda, because it's important. Because these things go around, and they say by the time the truth come around, the lies have already permeated the ears and the cerebral matter of the citizenry, Madam Speaker. And that is on you, Madam Speaker. And I would hope that you use all the force of the judiciary on defamation to deal with that, Madam Speaker. Because I know the members of the opposition know it's a lie, but look at the smoke. Glad and happy that this type of propaganda would go out on the heels of an election. No propaganda in 2020, son. And Madam Speaker, the single ION member, Mr. Kenneth Hodge, clearly said what this amendment is about. It should be non-controversial, and I know the members of the opposition don't have an issue with this. It was the Anguilla United Front who for the first time introduced early voting on June the 26th, 2020. We all came to this house, which was set up as a polling station, where the seniors in Anguilla, policemen and the like, emergency services could come and cast their ballot, Madam Speaker. It was a Friday. And on Monday, the 29th of June, 2020, as God may have seen it, Anguilla was rescued. And Madam Speaker, all this bill seeks to do is to make some simple amendments to remove the whole notion of blind and illiterate. Not because we read mean that we are literate, you know. My father would often say, Madam Speaker, read, understand, and inwardly digest, Madam Speaker. And that is why, on the back of our best Minister of Education in the history of Anguilla, Ms. Deanne Kentish Rogers, the forces are being fortified. And in less than a month, we'll be swearing in a new representative for District Number 2, Madam Speaker. And that of Lennox Van de Poel, oh, what a glorious day it will be, because the broken cards will then be amended, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, it also adds certain individual professions on to the other voting, lab technicians, prison officers, and fire, Madam Speaker. Because just in case, as things happen, there's an emergency, those persons would have had the opportunity to cast their vote. And Madam Speaker, I just want to remind while I say vote, today is the last day for registration, so go out and get registered. You have until 4 p.m. to get registered. Because every vote matters, because we can see they're already advertising tickets to come in and rob the election from you. So make sure that you're registered and you secure your progress, Anguillians. And Madam Speaker, so I just want for those persons who grab and gravitate to the lies and gossip that this is the truth, and the truth always set you free. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. You can encourage whoever's spreading the propaganda to grab a copy of the bill. It's available here at the House. I'm sure that person can read, right? Absolutely. Thank you. Are there any other contributions to this bill? Since there are no further contributions, I invite the mover to respond, please.
Madam Speaker, thank you, and thank you to my honorable colleague on both sides of the House for the interventions. As I said, Madam Speaker, this is not a controversial bill. It is simply seeking to put a few things in order, so to speak. So, Madam Speaker, I have nothing else to say except to say that thank both members of the House for their contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Elections Amendments Act 2025 be now read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
An act to amend the Elections Act RSAC E31.
Under Rule 45 of the House of Assembly Procedure Rules 2021, the bill now stands referred to a committee of the whole Assembly to be considered clause by clause. Assembly in committee.
Clauses 1 to 10.
I put the question that clauses 1 to 10 do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The title and the enacting clause.
I put the question that the title and the enacting clause do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The Assembly will now resume its sitting. The mover may report.
Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill shortly entitled A Bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025 has passed through the committee without amendment and is ready for its third reading. Madam Speaker, I beg to... Okay.
Elections Amendment Act 2025, third reading.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill shortly entitled A Bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025 be read a third time and passed. Sorry, Madam Speaker. Sorry, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave of you to move a motion for the suspension of the rules to allow 3 readings of this bill in one sitting.
Under Rule 36 of the Rules of Procedure, I consent to the proposing of this motion. Can someone second?
I rise a second.
It has been moved and seconded that the rules of procedure of the Assembly be suspended to allow the bill entitled A Bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025 to be read a third time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Rule 44 of the Rules of Procedure is now suspended.
Elections Amendment Act 2025, third reading.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill shortly entitled A Bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025 be read a third time and passed.
All right, a second.
It has been moved and seconded. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled A Bill for Elections Amendment Act 2025 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
An act to amend the Elections Act RSAC E31.
Bill read a third time and passed.
A bill for Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025, first reading.
Single Island Wide Electoral District Member Mr. Kenneth Hodge is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill shortly entitled A Bill for Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025 be read a first time.
Madam Speaker, I rise a second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill entitled Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025 be read a first time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a first time.
An act to provide for an exemption from the payment of prescribed immigration fees and other related matters.
Bill read a first time.
A bill for Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025, second reading.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill shortly entitled A Bill for Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025 be read a second time.
Madam Speaker, I rise a second.
Madam Speaker, thank you for this opportunity. And before I get into my explanation, Madam Speaker, through you, I'd like to acknowledge in the gallery this morning members of the Dominicano population as well. Pardon? Ruth and Lydia, yes, welcome. Welcome, yes. Also, I notice other members of the team as well, welcome. Madam Speaker, the purpose of this bill is to provide for an exemption from the payment of prescribed immigration fees in relation to the great-grandchild of a person born in Anguilla and who is regarded as being an Anguillian in accordance with Section 82EI of the Constitution and who has been exempted from obtaining a work permit. Madam Speaker, could I go on to, right. So, Madam Speaker, you recall earlier in this assembly I would have tabled the paper on the work permit regulations, Madam Speaker. That was on the labor side. This is now on the immigration side. And Madam Speaker, I think it is important to point out to the listening public that while there's a provision for these persons to have a 5-year residency, under the law, Madam Speaker, they are regarded as visitors. I have coined a new phrase for them. It is not in the Constitution, but I have coined a phrase, Anguillians in waiting, Madam Speaker, because visitors sounds very harsh. Visitors does not embody the fact, Madam Speaker, that these persons have Anguillian blood in their veins. And Madam Speaker, I can speak for myself when I say, and I know others can, that wherever I have traveled, Madam Speaker, I have family, Santo Domingo, in Cuba, French and Dutch St. Martin. Madam Speaker, wherever you turn, we have family members. Because, as we know, years and years ago, our forefathers and our grandfathers and fathers traveled the world over seeking employment, and in many cases, they created family unions and bonds, Madam Speaker. And a lot of these great-grandchildren are returning home to claim their heritage, Madam Speaker. And I can tell you, when I got into office, Madam Speaker, I would have had an opportunity to have met with quite a few of them. And as a matter of fact, you'll recall, sometime last week, I would have signed off a work permit exemption for a great-grandchild. So, Madam Speaker, today is a happy day for me and for this administration that we have previously exempted the work permit fees. Now we are taking a step further, Madam Speaker, to exempt the immigration fees. Because after all, as I've said before, Madam Speaker, these are Anguillians in waiting, and we see this as only logical step, Madam Speaker, to facilitate the process of them attaining their rights in Anguilla within the time that is so prescribed, Madam Speaker. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Member. A bill for Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025 has been moved and seconded. The floor is now open for contributions to the merits and principles of this bill. The Honorable Member for Valley South is recognized.
Good morning. Well, soon to be good afternoon, Madam Speaker. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to finally create some relief for, as my honorable colleague says, our Anguillians in wait. And I know he would have specifically mentioned Ruth and Lydia in the back and Jeanette and everyone, because this is something that they have been advocating for a very, very long time. And when we have systems, and I think this is a hallmark of this administration, is wherever we have seen problems in the way that they have caused hardship for people's lives, we have attempted to fix it. Wherever we have seen a problem, we have attempted to fix it. And that means, Madam Speaker, that even if it doesn't happen overnight, we still put our shoulders to the plow to ensure that we can come to the House and to the people of Anguilla to tell them that we have delivered. Every single time. This journey, Madam Speaker, has not been easy. And of course, the member will tell you, there's been opposition to nearly everything we have attempted to do for the people of Anguilla. Everything we have attempted to do for the people of Anguilla. But our shoulders are broad, and we were elected for a specific purpose. We were elected for this very purpose, to make changes that better the lives of the people of Anguilla. So the people who we consider family. And so, Madam Speaker, this morning it's an honor to be in this House for this amendment to our immigration legislation to ensure that the rights of grandchildren are taken into consideration and that they are no longer forced to work in underground economies when their ancestors would not have envisioned that for their lives. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Are there any other contributions to this bill? The Honorable Member for Island Harbor is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as the single island-wide member, elected member, Mr. Kenneth Hodge, said, this is why you have government, to do for the people what they cannot do for themselves. And when we had Anguillians, because by Constitution and the amendments done in 2019, great-grandchildren were considered to be Anguillians, but had to reside in Anguilla for 5 years before being granted the official status. That they then had to be given time, they were had to pay fees, like any other visitor to Anguilla, needed work permits to work. And so the steps that have been taken, Madam Speaker, contrary to what was said on the propaganda station this morning, that this was only done to get votes, Madam Speaker. This is done to help people, because when we have traveled to distant lands and benefited from other countries and accepted by citizens and residents of the other countries to work among them, to live among them, to participate, to benefit, Madam Speaker, we should be able to do the same in this country of ours, especially when persons are not just visitors, but are basically in waiting to be given that hand of belongership, Anguillianism. And so I am happy that the member was able to get this to the House and to get this through so that the fees that can build up, especially when our Anguillian brothers and sisters are not allowed to work, and now will be allowed to work because the work permit waiver. It shows that we care, and it shows that we do put people first. And even though that slogan is put out there, doesn't mean that whatever you say is what you do. But I think that this administration has shown that when we go out and we talk to persons in the community and they have concerns and that we can do something about it, that we do something about it. And that is the hallmark of this Anguilla Progressive Movement administration, that we take care of our people, especially those who are vulnerable, the very young and the elderly. Because, Madam Speaker, as I have said on several occasions, our elderly put in the time, put in the work, put in the sacrifice so that we have this opportunity to stand in this honorable House and be able to represent those who have gone before, those who are here, and those who are coming, and are very young. If we lay the foundation for their well-being and to take care of their interests, which is Anguilla's interests, we know that this Anguilla will continue into the next generation and generations to follow. And as I said, that is a commitment that any administration should have, and I think that has been ably represented by this group of caring, competent ministers, elected members on the government side, Madam Speaker. And so I stand to endorse this amendment brought by the member who is the Minister for Home Affairs, who is responsible for labor and immigration. And I like the part where it says that any fees that have been accrued or that in arrears will also be removed, Madam Speaker. This shows progress. This shows that we care. This shows that we have accepted that persons who are Anguillian are treated as Anguillians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Are there any other contributions to this bill? Since there are no other contributions, I invite the mover to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank my honorable colleague, the Minister of Education, Social Development, and the Honorable Premier for their kind support and words of commendation. Madam Speaker, I beg to report, not ready for the third reading? Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
A little zealous today.
You're eager to report. That time will come. Thanks. Thank you, Member. It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled, "A Bill for Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025" be now read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
An act to provide for an exemption from payment of prescribed immigration fees and other related matters.
Under Rule 45 of the House of Assembly Rules of Procedure 2021, the bill now stands referred to a Committee of the Whole Assembly to be considered clause by clause. Assembly in committee?
Clauses 1 to 4.
I put the question that clauses 1 to 4 do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
The title and the enacting clause.
I put the question that the title and the enacting clause do stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. The Assembly will now resume its sitting. Now you may report.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's with pleasure that I beg to report that the bill shortly entitled "A Bill for Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025" has passed through committee without amendment and is now ready for its third reading.
You can read the short title. That's fine.
Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025, third reading.
Okay.
Madam Speaker, I beg leave of you to move a motion for the suspension of the rules to allow 3 readings of this bill in one sitting.
So you're moving now for Rule 44 to be suspended.
Yes. So, Madam Speaker, I beg to move that Rule 44 of the House of Assembly Rules be suspended to allow for the bill to be read in one sitting. Yes, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
Yes. Under Rule 36 of the Rules of Procedure, I consent to the proposing of this motion. Okay. Now you were supposed to second. I will. Hold on, member. Hold on. You are really anxious, member. Go easy. It has been moved and seconded that the rules of procedure of the Assembly be suspended to allow the bill shortly entitled "A Bill for Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025" to be read a third time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Rule 44 of the Rules of Procedure is now suspended. Now it's your turn, member.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move that the bill shortly entitled "A Bill for Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025" be read a third time and passed.
Madam Speaker, I eagerly rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill entitled "A Bill for Immigration and Passport Amendment Act 2025" be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
An act to provide for an exemption from the payment of prescribed immigration fees and other related matters.
Bill read a third time and passed.
Private members' bills, none. Private bills, none. Other orders of the day.
We have received, oh, we'll go last. Let the members have their other orders of the day first, and we'll go last, okay? Yes? The Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mr. Kenneth Hodge, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity at this time to thank, Madam Speaker, the whole of Anguilla, Madam Speaker, as an island-wide candidate for the opportunity. Madam Speaker, it was an honor and a privilege, Madam Speaker, to have served in this honorable House for the period of this administration, Madam Speaker. It was challenging, Madam Speaker, because this administration, Madam Speaker, despite the rigors of COVID and the recovery from the hurricane, Madam Speaker, we were able to achieve major developments in this island over the past 3.5 years, Madam Speaker, having achieved well over 100 significant developments in this island. And Madam Speaker, I attribute that in great part to the support of the people of Anguilla, Madam Speaker, across this island who rallied behind us and supported us as we went through the task of rebuilding this island. Madam Speaker, the task is not yet finished. There's more work to be done. But at this point in time, Madam Speaker, I think it's important to give thanks where thanks is due, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have to give thanks to Almighty God because sometimes when the going got rough, Madam Speaker, and I thought I had reached to my end, I said a prayer, Madam Speaker, and I got the courage to continue, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I must say here today, a sincere thanks to my family, Madam Speaker. Behind every good man, Madam Speaker, is a woman, Madam Speaker. In this case, this woman wasn't behind me, Madam Speaker. This woman was right side by side with me, Madam Speaker, through it all. And I'm grateful for her support through all of this. She's a strong woman, yes, Madam Speaker, very, very strong. And she's sitting in the gallery today, Madam Speaker. And my children, Madam Speaker, they have been shoulders of support, and all my family and friends, Madam Speaker. And they say there is good work, there is more work to be done, Madam Speaker. And I pledge, Madam Speaker, if the good people of Anguilla see it fit to return this administration to office, and I have no doubt, Madam Speaker, that they will, that there's even more work to be done, Madam Speaker. It is unfortunate that this country is only now really achieving its true potential, Madam Speaker, in moving this country forward. And I want to thank the Premier in particular for his encouragement, his guidance, and all the members of the APM team, and indeed all the new members who have come on board. Madam Speaker, to you in this honorable House and your staff as well, for the guidance, for helping us through the technical nuances of the rules of procedure and all those other things that help to make the parliamentary sittings smooth. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. The Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mr. Joseph Vanderpool, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll be brief, Madam Speaker, because I know over the coming weeks there will be ample time for campaigning and politicking. But I too would like to take this moment simply to thank the people of Anguilla, from District 1 to District 7, not only those who would have voted for me and the party in the last election, but for everyone, whether supporting or against, for this immense privilege to not only serve you, the constituents, you, the people of Anguilla, but to serve my country at one of the highest levels. To think of the experience over the past 4.5 going on 5 years, there's been some highs, there's been some lows, but I can confidently say that I have endeavored and I've tried my best to serve my people to the utmost and the best of my ability, and that includes expanding and equipping myself with new skill sets, new knowledge, to be able to represent and give the persons the quality of representation that they need. And I can only say at this time, Madam Speaker, while I'm thanking the people of Anguilla, I do hope that they will be proud of the representation that I have given them. And I will be putting myself forward in the next general election, so I guess they will have the chance to decide then. But for the time spent thus far, again, I want to say thank you to the people of Anguilla. Now, going forward, Madam Speaker, while we will hear a lot of things on the campaign trail, one of the things that I want to admonish my fellow colleagues, not just us in the House of Assembly, regardless of the side of the aisle, but to everyone who is putting themselves forth to be a candidate in the next general election, Madam Speaker. As leaders, we need to be able to set the example. And when we talk about the ills that come in our society, the division, we need to take the personal responsibility for what it is we do, what comes out of our mouths, what example are we setting to not only the people, but the future generations of Anguilla. So I would like to admonish everyone who's putting themselves forward to contest the general election to consider that we do this differently this time around. We stick to the issues. We put forth representation that we would want to see in our children and the future generations who look up to us to set the example. And to the people of Anguilla, I ask you to expect, and not only expect, Madam Speaker, demand better of your representatives or of anyone who is putting themselves forward. Because once we're in this honorable House, Madam Speaker, it's not simply opposition versus government. What too many people forget, that the day after elections, it is about Anguilla. And that's why we do not need to lose focus. So going out, let's focus on what matters. Let's stick to the issues. Let's stick to the proposals. Let's stick to the plan for leading this country forward in the direction it needs to go, Madam Speaker. Because it is through that leadership that we will actually get Anguilla to where it needs to go. So I do think that we need to go beyond the traditional ways we've approached politics and elevate the level of discourse. Give our youth something to aspire to. Change the landscape so that the able-bodied persons, the persons who have what it takes to move this country forward, aren't of the opinion that I will never get into politics. Let's change what it means to be a representative of Anguilla, Madam Speaker. I give my commitment to this honorable House and to the people of Anguilla. That's exactly what I intend to do in terms of leading a responsible campaign. But again, I will just end by again saying thank you to the people of Anguilla. I look for your vote. I ask for your support in the upcoming general election. It has been an honor and a pleasure to serve you, and I look forward, if given the opportunity, to continue to do so following the next general election. The future is bright, Madam Speaker, and will be brighter as long as we vote all 5 lights. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Member for West End is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I often, when I stand in this House, will give credit to the people of District 7 because, again, when we call ourselves honorable in this House, our one vote, although one vote is important, is not what brings us here. It is the belief that the people have in us, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, just to follow on from my colleague about how we go about winning an election, you know, when they talk about a game, a political game, the truth is every game has got rules, but I'm not sure what the rules in politics really are, because anything seems to go as long as it can get you a vote. I think what is vitally important, and the idea of voting, Madam Speaker, is that especially as black people, the fact that our people over the years, many have died to give us the right to vote. A number of persons, young people especially, they say they don't want to sign up to vote. For what particular reason? They don't want to be a juror. But I think that over the years, we really need to understand what a vote really means. And we can agree to disagree on many factors, but it's how we choose to disagree. I remember the first interview that I did with Keith Stonegreaves. This is back in 2015, leading up to the 2015 election. I made a point that if Christy Richardson, who was my opponent, had she won, I would support her. And people are saying, you can't say that. This is politics. The idea, Madam Speaker, is that you're there to represent the people. And it is hard. It is hard for people, some persons, to understand that even if you don't win, you still need to show that you're there for your people. Now, I've been very fortunate in my life. I've been fortunate in my life that I grew up from the ground up. At 15, I was sleeping on lodgings on the floor. I understood what walking in a salt pond was about. I understood seeing my aunt of 8 months pregnant still going into the salt pond. I see my two cousins who lost their father when one was 11 and the other was 9, to have grown up, to be able to make a life for themselves. All they needed was an opportunity. What they did have, what I had, was a community that was there for me. Today, Madam Speaker, and as we move forward, we could talk about progress and development, but the key factor is the development of your people. The key factor is the development of people. And we can agree to disagree what is true development. But for me, you can have the most impressive building in the world, but if your people are not happy, if your people do not see that there are opportunities for them to grow, to me, that is not development. That is not true development. So, Madam Speaker, again, some can agree, some could disagree, that's okay. But the question is how you go about it, how you go about it. You know, that's why we are quite often on different sides of the aisle. You can agree to disagree, but it's how you go about it. Madam Speaker, I want to thank you and your staff for the role that you've played over the last 4.5 years. Of course, the job is never easy, but we put our hands up to say we will do it. And it is vitally important, I think, whoever comes to this House after the next general election, that they put their hands on their heart and say that they're here to represent the people that puts them in this House. Madam Speaker, again, I want to thank the people of West End especially. I'm enthused by the energy that they give to me, because I cannot do it alone. It doesn't matter what project that I choose, not half the time it's not what I choose, it's what my people say, these are the needs. And as their representative, I'll do whatever it takes in order to get there. So to my colleagues on the other side, I wish you all the very best as you go about campaigning next general election. At the end of the day, what we really want is not for the APM to win or for the ART to win or the Anguilla United Front to win, but the people of Anguilla feels that they've won after the next general election. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I recognize the member for Road South.
Madam Speaker, you seem very reluctant to recognize the member for Road South.
Wondering if I had to put time limits, that's all.
And I hope that is not because I am running in this election unopposed, that you were reluctant in recognizing me. But it's quite fascinating to listen to the single island white member say, this is not the political platform, and we'll have the opportunity to speak politics outside of this honorable house. But at the end, he still made reference that you must vote for 5 blights. But, Madam Speaker, that's not what we're here today. I want to recognize in the gallery my favorite auntie, Auntie Dorothy Butler Nee Hughes, who was born over 93 years ago, Madam Speaker, on an island that was void of lights and dusty roads, Madam Speaker. And 93 years later, we are still an island that is in partial darkness and have more dusty roads than paved roads. But, Madam Speaker, because of the people of Anguilla and of the people in District 6, Madam Speaker, voting this progressive administration to office in 2020, we have embarked on a program called Eradication Roads, where across the length and breadth of this island, the hope and aspiration of this administration is to ensure that when my aunt make 98, all the dirt roads in Anguilla will be eradicated. And her brother, her last living brother, Uncle Freddie James Hughes, passed on December the 24th, 2024 at the age of 98. So I know, she better know that she can't leave this earth before 98 or before we eradicate all of the dirt roads, because through her, her father and her mother must see that come to fruition. And Madam Speaker, 8 of them, were born and only 1 left. And we are only passing through. We're here in this honorable house today. But when I look back through history, all of the members of the 1972 Commission no longer with us. All of the members of the House of Assembly, elected House of Assembly in 1976, no longer with us. And in 1977, the Honorable James Ronald Webster stood in this house and he spoke about the dirt roads, and one of them in particular in Long Bay. That is still a dirt road, Madam Speaker. But we are passing through. And when I hear the members of the opposition try to denigrate and diminish the development of this country, diminishing buildings, diminishing airport and seaport and school infrastructure and road infrastructure, Madam Speaker, talking about you building these things without the people benefiting, Madam Speaker. And when I go over to the airport, Madam Speaker, and there's 150 people working, 1% of our population, isn't that human beings? Isn't that people contributing to their families and the well-being of their families, Madam Speaker? When I hear them trying to say that you don't eat concrete, and I see the men and women, I see women getting involved in construction now, working in construction, providing for their families. And I see, because of the development and advancement and growth of this economy, we have the financial wherewithal to offer millions and millions of dollars in scholarships to ensure that our people have the requisite skills to be able to contribute to the further advancement and development of this country. Because the member, see this single Illinois member, Madam Speaker, Mr. Joseph Van Der Poel, he's a beneficiary of such a scholarship. He was granted a scholarship, went off to university, and came back. And when he came back, he was given a golden parachute right here in this parliament, and then he was elected. So he has been a great beneficiary of the people of this country, the taxpayers of this country. So you cannot diminish the development of this country. But this is the last sitting of Parliament before we return to office in less than a month, Madam Speaker. And I want to congratulate the member for West End for giving his concession speech today, Madam Speaker, where before the first ballot was cast, he conceded to the next elected representative for District Number 7, Mr. Jamie Hodge. And I want to say that that was graceful in the way he exited the political wall of Anguilla, Madam Speaker. So I would like to give Mr. Cardigan Connor a round of applause. So, Madam Speaker, while I'm on my feet and while I speak for the final time in this particular sitting of this particular administration, because there'll be additions to the administration, on the early evening of February the 26th, we don't have to wait too long. We don't have to hear Hayden Hughes the boat Hayden Hughes the boat, 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 Maricana, the heart. Hayden Hughes the boat, Hayden Hughes the boat, Hayden Hughes the boat, Maricana, the heart. We don't have to wait long on that night, Madam Speaker. It will just pop up on the screen and you will see 5 boats. And Madam Speaker, and we'll be coming to this house soon thereafter and swearing in our champion, Madam Speaker, for his 2nd term as the Honorable Premier of Anguilla, Dr. Ellis. And I want to say to the good people of Road South, you took a chance on me. I lost the election in 2015 by 66 votes. But in 2020, 727 of you went out. The most votes in the history of Road South, and took a chance on me, Madam Speaker. And they took a chance because all around the island they would say that Hayden is this and Hayden is that and Hayden is the other. Hayden is going to give Dr. Webster the most trouble. All of these things they said. 8 p.m. East and 8 p.m. West. And all sorts of things, Madam Speaker. But Dr. Webster knows. He knows his loyal soldiers, and his loyal soldiers have been Mr. Kenneth Hodge, Ms. Deanne Kentish-Rogers, Mrs. Quincy Gums Marie, who added to the population of Anguilla, Mr. Merrick Richardson, Mr. Courtney Morton, and yours truly, Madam Speaker. But in every situation, Madam Speaker, there's always the enemy within. And I heard the member for West End spoke about the fact that individuals, you never know where individuals are, Madam Speaker. And he spoke about his blackness, Madam Speaker. He said, as black people, and I had to look closely, Madam Speaker. But be that as it may, Madam Speaker, if you look at the history of the slave revolts, Madam Speaker, all of the slave revolts failed with the exception to the one led by Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines in Haiti. And that is because in every instance, there was a slave amongst them that went and told Massa, that undermined the leadership of the revolution, Madam Speaker. And we were no different. This was a revolution in June of 2020, where we ushered in a fresh, bold government, Madam Speaker. But there was one amongst us, the Trojan, Madam Speaker, that sought to undermine and destroy him, Madam Speaker. But now he's in the right place. And in a few weeks, the people of Anguilla would have the opportunity from District 1 to District 7 to see all 11 and vote the vote, Madam Speaker, all the way through. And to the people of District 6, do not assume that I will beat Mary Connor in the upcoming election. Mary is a good lady. I have nothing negative to say about Miss Mary Connor. But do not assume that I will just waltz into office and win the election. Mary Connor will fight tooth and nail to win this election. So I want you all to come out in your numbers and ensure that the art does not take that seat. As you know, there's only 2 candidates in that district, Madam Speaker. And that is Mary Connor and Hayden Hughes. And I want you, based on the endorsement that you gave in 2020, to come out in 2025 and vote Hayden Hughes the vote, vote Atlan Vanderpool the vote, vote Gleneva Hodge the vote Quincy Gums Mary the vote, and vote Kenneth Hodge the vote, Madam Speaker, because it is important that the progress that we have started and the development that we have commenced reach every corner of this country, from Island Harbor to West End, from Shoal Bay to the Forest. No discrimination, Madam Speaker, none whatsoever. And the leadership of Dr. Webster, that caring hand, has proven that there's no discrimination. Electricity credits, it didn't matter who you supported or who you didn't. It didn't matter whether you're born in Dominica or the Dominican Republic. It didn't matter whether you were a boat, whether you were a tree, whether you were a heart. I even saw a member of the Anguilla United Front saying today, Dr. Webster, give us one more electricity credit before you demit office. So they recognize that there was no discrimination. And in the instance of Senior Shield, Madam Speaker, it didn't matter who you were. It didn't matter how much time you spent criticizing and denigrating the Premier. I know he must feel lonely at times, Madam Speaker. He did not do a means test. Or did he discriminate against you, your family, or whatever political persuasion you may have? And I know Mr. Kenneth Hodge, his goal has been to increase the population of Anguilla. You hear me, Covis? And Madam Speaker, now we have Junior Shield that gives children up until the age of 6 free health care. So please, Covis, Jose, Joash, Warren, Vanish, please take advantage of it, because I am of the firm belief that it may be up to 5 years now, but with this administration, that will expand, and you will see 70 years reduced to 65 and to 60. You'll see 5 years go up to 10 and 15. And eventually, Madam Speaker, this administration is going to bring about not only comprehensive health care for all the citizens of this country, but also we're going to ensure that we have a pension plan for all the citizens of this country, Madam Speaker. These are the things that we're working on. So every day, I hear people saying to me, you guys have done so much. What is there left to do? There is so much left to be done, Madam Speaker. So much left to be done. And it shall be done. By God's will and your vote, it shall be done. So, Auntie Butler, stick around. It's going to be a beautiful ride. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Member for Road North is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, let me start by saying good afternoon to everyone listening on whatever medium they are following us. I say welcome to everyone in the gallery, especially loyal folks from our 12th candidate, our blue team. Welcome. Madam Speaker, the last four and a half years have been very eventful. And I will start by saying thanks to the entire Anguilla for having faith in me, but more importantly, District 5 Road North for going out to the polls 4.5 years ago and elected me to this Honorable House of Assembly. I want to give thanks to my district, Road North, Sandy Ground, North Hill, South Hill, Water Swamp. I also want to give thanks, Madam Speaker, to the village that raised me, North Hill. The village that watched me go from a barefoot boy, running down by P.B. Huber to buy bread for my mother, and returning 4 hours later with the bread because I had to stop in the big yard and play marbles and cricket. I thank that village for raising me. because I grew up in a time, Madam Speaker, when a village truly, truly raised a child. I grew up, Madam Speaker, without my biological father. Met him the first time at 6, Madam Speaker. But I never one day in my life, Madam Speaker, yearned for a father figure. Because growing up in the village of Natal, I had too many father figures that it was never a need. Close cousins, and more importantly, Madam Speaker, the man who took me into his house, my uncle, Sidney Hughes, Madam Speaker. A man I'll hold dear in my heart forever and ever, Madam Speaker. So respected a man, Madam Speaker, one of my sons. I made sure his middle name carried the name of Sidney. He also has a granddaughter in this house, and I won't say who she is. She also has the middle name of Sidney, Madam Speaker, because that man left such a mold on our lives that we had to make sure that it was paid forward, Madam Speaker. So I thank the village of Natal, Madam Speaker, for raising this young man. The village that watched me go, like I said, from a barefoot boy, running down to the big yard to play marbles and cricket, to being elected in this honorable house, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was on a radio interview yesterday and I was asked why I don't show plenty of anger in this house. 1, I don't ever have need to show anger in this house. 2, I know every time I'm getting up to speak, every time I'm making a public appearance, every single day of my life, Madam Speaker, I am representing the people of Road North, Madam Speaker. Every single time, Madam Speaker, since the 1st of July, Madam Speaker, since elections were called, Madam Speaker, the 29th of June, I have been representing the people of Road North, District 5, Madam Speaker. And I do that from my heart, Madam Speaker. No pretense, Madam Speaker. I have not changed, Madam Speaker. I am still the same person that met me. That was there 4.5 years ago. I am that person now. Not barefoot anymore, Madam Speaker, because honestly, I can't walk the ground no more with my shoes, Madam Speaker. But I wanted to really, honestly, and like the other members say, there's going to be time for politicking, and there's going to be time to sing the praises of this administration, Madam Speaker. But I think this is a good time, Madam Speaker, as we close this session of the House. This session, not the end of our time, but this session of the House, Madam Speaker, as we close it, it's appropriate to say thanks. Madam Speaker, I want to say thanks to you, as Madam Speaker, for conducting this House. There have been times when we have been a little bit unruly. I won't call any names, Madam Speaker. But you have conducted this House, Madam Speaker, as it should be conducted. I've told many persons I've enjoyed my time, Madam Speaker, my first 4.5 years as an elected representative. I've enjoyed it immensely. And sometimes when people ask just about what you've done, Madam Speaker, it's not always what is done for your district or even outside of the House. But there are important roles that are done within this House to make sure that the country goes forward. And I've been proud, Madam Speaker, to do my bit. I've served on 2 committees in the House, Madam Speaker. I'm a member of the Public Accounts Committee, Madam Speaker. I'm a member of the Administration Committee, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the entire history of this House, since this House of Assembly was created, we had 2 select committees, Madam Speaker. And I can say proudly, Madam Speaker, yours truly have been the chair of both those committees, Madam Speaker. We had a GST Select Committee, which did awesome work, Madam Speaker, in guiding a lot of the principles that set out and what the end product of our first GST ended up being. I also had the honor, Madam Speaker, of bringing to this House a motion to form a committee, Madam Speaker, another select committee on gun crime, and with both members from either side of the House, Madam Speaker, we were able to do good work. And a lot of what we are seeing now in terms of preventative measures and the call center and CCTV, a lot of those recommendations, Madam Speaker, came from that committee. I was truly honored to serve on both of those committees, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, in the times when you were unable to sit in that honorable chair, I had the pleasure, Madam Speaker, of acting as Speaker of this House. So my first 4.5 years, Madam Speaker, in this honorable House, it was truly, truly, truly a wonderful time for me, Madam Speaker. I look forward, Madam Speaker, to the good people of Road North choosing their next representative, who will be myself, Madam Speaker, because We will continue, Madam Speaker, to have someone who can truly represent the district, Madam Speaker, with pride, humility, and will be a very, very, very good member of this House, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Honourable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mrs. Quincy Gums-Marie, is recognized.
Good morning, well, good afternoon, Madam Speaker, and members of the gallery. Thanks for sticking out with us, not just for these few hours, but these last 4 or 5 years, and we really appreciate it. Madam Speaker, as this Parliament comes to a close, I rise with a deep sense of gratitude, humility, and reflection. 5 years ago, the people of Anguilla placed their trust in me and this team by granting us the opportunity to serve as their representatives. To each and every one of the persons who cast their vote for me, who believed in my vision and entrusted me with this immense responsibility, I say thank you. It has been the honor of my life to serve. To my family, my husband, who is in the gallery, always here, my daughter, a new addition, my parents, my brothers, my cousins, the cousins that I have adopted, and my adopted godmother, who is in the gallery. Those of you who have stood by me in the brightest and most challenging moments, your unwavering support has been my anchor. Public service is not a journey that one walks alone, and your love and encouragement have given me the strength to carry on, even when the road was steep. To you, Madam Speaker, I extend my heartfelt thanks for presiding over this House. You have seen debates filled with passion from both sides of the aisle. In this chamber, we have had many memorable moments, from the first Select Committee of the House that was chaired by none other than the Honorable Merrick Richardson, to engaging moments that sparked conversations across Anguilla, even if it was in the forms of memes and GIFs. These moments remind us that democracy is alive and well. So I thank you and the technical team of this House for your support. To the Honourable Member for District 1 and Premier, my deepest gratitude to you for believing in me, not just once, but at every step of my political journey. You trusted me to join your movement, the Anguilla Progressive Movement, and to carry forward its mission. You saw potential in me to appoint me as the Parliamentary Secretary of Natural Resources, Information Technology, Tourism, and Economic Development, and gave me the honor of leading the Ministry of Sustainability, Innovation, and the Environment. Serving alongside you has been a privilege, and you pushed me to grow as a leader, and I will forever value the lessons I have learned in the rooms where we have fought to secure Anguilla's future. To the other elected members of the Anguilla Progressive Movement government, I thank you for being more than colleagues. In you, I have found family, even though some people need to be disciplined more than others. Together, we have navigated a period in Anguilla's history that tested our resilience as leaders and as people. Madam Speaker, this House has witnessed the growth of Anguilla to some of the most difficult years in recent memory. When we were sworn into government, we inherited a government that was closed, a country that was closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, a country with no financial reserves, a country on the brink of exhausting its goodwill with the United Kingdom. The challenges before us as new leaders were monumental. Yet, bill after bill, motion after motion, we took the necessary steps to rebuild this country. We made tough decisions that were not always popular, but ones that we knew were undoubtedly in the best interests of all Anguilla and all Anguillians. Together, we navigated an unprecedented global crisis and national crises caused by bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. But today, we stand strong, and this progressive movement has a record of progress. When we look back on the mandate given to us by the people of Anguilla, we can say with confidence that we delivered. Madam Speaker, I have seen a ramping up of dishonesty by persons who have publicly stated their allegiance to the Anguilla United Front. And to that, I simply say, man lie, woman lie, but our record is unquestionable. Within technically 3 years, we have delivered on improvements in healthcare and offerings, making record investments in healthcare, record investments in sports and culture, record investments in education, investments in CCTV, record numbers in tourism performance, improved performance of governance and transparency in government, improved physical infrastructure. We delivered on social development by way of training and other opportunities. We delivered on food security. We delivered on economic growth. And we delivered on community development. This is just to name a few, Madam Speaker. And as I said 2 weeks ago in Island Harbor, you ain't seen nothing yet. The work is just beginning. The journey has not been easy, but it was worth it. The progress we see today, whether in agriculture, sustainable development, or innovation, is the result of the collective effort of this House and the unwavering spirit of the Anguillian people. As we head into elections, I look back on these 5 years with pride, not because what I have achieved individually, but because of what we have achieved together. The work is not done, but I leave this chamber knowing that the foundation we have laid is strong, and I say to the people of Anguilla that it would be an honor to be given the opportunity to work on behalf of you once more. I encourage you to support all our candidates. Use your 5 votes on our 5 votes. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Anguilla, and may God continue to guide us and this beautiful nation forward ever.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Member for Valley South is recognized.
Madam Speaker, good morning or good afternoon. I come before this House this afternoon with a heart full of gratitude for the time that I've been able to serve the people of Anguilla. It has been a time filled with great highs and also some lows. But even in those highs and lows, Madam Speaker, our North Star has never changed. Our compass has always pointed in the direction of bettering the lives of the people of Anguilla. Madam Speaker, I come before this House to say thank you specifically to the people of District 4 who have given me the opportunity not only to serve as their representative in this honorable House of Assembly, but in the United Kingdom, in Colombia, in El Salvador, and other areas where I represented the interests of the people of Anguilla internationally. Madam Speaker, as this House faces its final sitting, I must place on record my deep and immense gratitude to have served alongside my colleagues to the left and the right. There is no greater joy that I have had and experienced than being partnered with hardworking, diligent, competent, responsible colleagues who have always kept their hearts open for this nation, irrespective of the cost, whether personal or otherwise. Madam Speaker, we have faced immense challenges together. We have faced the intentional twisting and propaganda that has become a scourge on this nation. And yet, we are still here to do the work of the people of Anguilla. Today, Madam Speaker, as we roll through the campaign in the weeks to come, it is my hope that the people of Anguilla will keep their ears and their hearts open for the team with a plan, the team that has set course, a path for this country, that has allowed Anguilla to be internationally and regionally recognized for the fastest growing economy in the Eastern Caribbean. Madam Speaker, I hope that the people of Anguilla will realize that even when we face the problems, and we do recognize that there are problems, we approach them authentically and with the recognition that pretending that the problems don't exist will never be the solution. Madam Speaker, I would like to put into context that this administration, commonly referred to as a rookie administration, has served for really 3.5 years. 1.5 years taken from us due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And in 3.5 years, this rookie administration has not only had to set out an aggressive path to demonstrate to the people of Anguilla our ability to deliver on the dreams of our people, but also to fix the historic and entrenched problems this country has had for over 50 years. So no, Madam Speaker, the task was not easy. And yes, Madam Speaker, not one of us has sat in government before this term. But we have demonstrated through our actions, through our delivery of food security, of record-breaking tourism arrivals, of sports development for young persons who we now see are thriving academically overseas. Persons who would have previously been earmarked as troublesome children are now thriving in the US at university as a result of the investments of this administration. And more investments are to come. Madam Speaker, unfortunately, or fortunately, as you may see it, elections is about to be called, is going to be due on the 25th and 26th of February. But before then, there are major announcements to be made for the people of Anguilla. Major announcements for the people of Anguilla. Especially the young people of Anguilla who have waited for certain sports development projects for as long as I have been a child in this country. And Madam Speaker, that, make no mistake, that is because of the diligence of this administration. Because if former and previous administrations wanted to do the work, they would have already done it. And so, Madam Speaker, as we face this election, our choice is very simple. Our choice is very simple. Do we choose to go back to an administration who held the reins of power for over 20 years in this country, and yet we have not seen the benefits or the fruits of their labor? Or do we go forward with this progressive, Anguilla Progressive Movement administration, setting the course for the future to come? Investments in scholarships and training, record-breaking. More to come. Investments in sports and culture, record-breaking. More to come. Investments in health, senior and junior shield, record-breaking. More to come. Changes to the education system and acknowledging the systemic issues in education, record-breaking, but more to come. And I see my honorable, I will call him from now, my honorable colleague, Mr. Lennox Vanterpool, who will undoubtedly together sound the call and make the changes that we need in our education system, undoubtedly. The reforms in our immigration system to allow our people, although they would have been born in the Dominican Republic, they are our people, to be recognized, record-breaking, but more to come. Madam Speaker, we do not mince words at this particular moment. It is a critical juncture for us. And this young administration, these rookies who have had to shoulder the burden together with our people, to make the necessary changes so that Anguilla is not left in the dust behind all the other Caribbean countries who have already made the necessary decisions for their own development. We are making the change now. We are making the decisions today. And you, the people of Anguilla, have a decision to make on the 25th and 26th of February next month. As my colleague said last night in District 2, the ayes of history will be watching us. And they will ask us if we learned our lesson from the past 20 years under an Anguilla United Front administration, and if we are willing to be fooled by them, or if we are willing to step hand in hand with an administration that has put transparency and integrity at the hallmark of their mission to take the people of Anguilla forward. And so this afternoon, I say thank you to the people of District 4 who have given me the opportunity to serve them in multiple capacities. And to the young people of District 4, as we verge, as we have grown together, as you have seen me grow in your eyes over the past 4.5 years, I want to thank you for watching me grow, for praying for me, for covering me in your prayers. And I pray that as we continue to grow together, that we can continue the good work that we have started, so that the fruits and the trees that we plant today, generations to come will be able to bask in the shade that they bear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable... You're good, okay. The Honorable Member for Island Harbor is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank the members of this House and the staff of this House for making this a cordial experience to have served in the House for the past 4.5 years, and looking forward to another, to be in this House on this side of the aisle in the 13th Anguilla House of Assembly, which will start in March of 2025. Madam Speaker, I've been privileged in my life to have met presidents and kings and African chiefs and other persons of high esteem. But Madam Speaker, the greatest privilege of my life is to have served in this House of Assembly and to serve with this group who has been with us through thick and thin since 2020, looking out for the well-being and the best interests of the people of Anguilla. Madam Speaker, I choose this opportunity now to thank the members in the gallery who have come here today, because, you know, before we started in 2020, they would have been considered to be strangers in this House. And I do remember back in November of 2015 when this Honorable House would have been ringed with armed police officers and ferocious dogs to prevent the people from coming into the House, Madam Speaker. And upon coming into this House, one of the first orders of business was that you led us to revise the wording of the proceedings, and also to make sure that we were admonitioned by you that this is the people's house and that this is an honorable house and it should be treated as such and counted an honor to serve in this house. The house carries the name of one of our revolutionary heroes, the Honorable Atlin Noralda Harrigan. And so we must continue to revere this opportunity to have sat in the seats where they're sat, to have walked the paths that they trod, to be able to stand on the shoulders that they left us so that we can be who we are for the people of Anguilla. But I'm not talking about the accolades that we have to carry the terms premier or ministers. Or what I am honored by is that we meet everyday people in everyday walks of life and they tell us what's bothering them. They alert us to the issues that they have to live day in, day out. They let us know what their families are going through. And there's some who may not have been born here, but they're now here, whether they reside or they're Anguillians, they are here. And they let us know what stigmas are attached to them, what they have had to go through and endure. And then what we do, Madam Speaker, is we meet as a group, as a cabinet, and then we instruct, direct our public servants, able-bodied, who, Madam Speaker, have not had a raise since 2008, and we know that cost of living has gone up in that time, and now this administration has made it possible for consultation for comprehensive salary review for public servants. These are the things that a caring administration will do, an administration that puts the people first, an administration that doesn't discriminate as to who, whether they voted for the blue team or a different colored team, what symbol they voted for on election day, but that we all are Anguillians and that we all should be treated the same. And this administration has made that a hallmark, but we have listened, we have heard, and we bring these policies to Executive Council. Sometimes we have to fight tooth and nail to get the policies through because we do have an administering power. And sometimes that administering power feels that they know better what should be done and what should be allowed for us than we ourselves. And sometimes it's our fault, Madam Speaker, because history shows that sometimes, administrations have made promises and then they don't keep them. They find ways to kick the can down the road. They talk about, being straitjacketed and, being able to find ways to get around commitments that they have made. But this administration, the commitments we've made, Madam Speaker, we've made sure that we live up to them. Sometimes we have to negotiate and sometimes we have to compromise, always knowing that the people of Anguilla are first and foremost in every decision that we make. And the record of this 4.5 years will show that this administration have introduced policies, have brought legislation and motions to this House, and that sometimes those on the other side have let the people down by voting, opposing, or not contributing. And I do hope that the people of Anguilla will take this into consideration when they go to the polls on the 26th of February of this year. And those who are allowed to vote earlier because of their positions or their age will also be considerate on the 25th of February 2024. Now, Speaker, I've seen this administration grow. I've seen them mature. And I think that the people of Anguilla will know that this administration is an administration that has grown up in this House. We didn't take this for granted. We didn't say that you, the people, put us here so that we can be lifted up on high horses. We said we are here to work. We rolled up our sleeves. We rolled up our cuffs. We got down and we did the business of the people. And that is the legacy of this administration, the Anguilla Progressive Movement. And so, like the Apostle Paul said in Acts chapter 27, verse 31, it says, "Stay on board the boat, or the men will perish." And they stayed on the boat, and all were saved. Madam Speaker, the Bible does give us admonitions which we should follow. I want to thank the people from District 1, people from Island Harbor, who went out in their numbers. On June the 26th of 2020, they came here. Some of them couldn't even walk well, Madam Speaker, but they made their way into this honorable house when it was set up as the advanced polling station and cast their vote for the Anguilla Progressive Movement, for me to have the chance to represent them. I want to thank those who went out to the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School on the 29th of June of 2020, braving the hot sun, some standing for 4 or 5 hours, Madam Speaker, so that they could make their choice known. And when it was all over, when the votes were counted in this House on the evening of the 29th of June, they said that the Anguilla Progressive Movement is the team that they felt and had the confidence in to lead them for the next 5 years. This was during COVID, Madam Speaker. This was 3 years after the worst hurricane that had ever hit Anguilla, and we had not recovered. In fact, a lot of the Anguilla program projects had just gotten started with the 60 million pounds that the UK had given to us. And we were a young administration, but the people had the confidence that during our campaign that we had made the case, that they had looked in our eyes, and they had heard our utterances. They had seen the way we interacted with them. And when we sat on their steps, on the ground, or in their living rooms, we had tea and talks and town halls and public rallies. They knew that our intentions was good. Yeah, we didn't accomplish all that we said we wanted to. And certainly it's hard to accomplish everything you want to when you had an empty treasury, when there were no reserves, when the debt was so high, and we relied on the $100 million that the UK was offering and had to go ahead with the MOU that was previously signed, a commitment by the Anguilla United Front that they would put in place the GST, which they started on the 1st of October of 2019. And they would have continued on the 1st of January 2021. And now they go around saying that they would not have done it. I mean, these are the things, Madam Speaker, that does irk the soul. And these are the reasons why the UK was so strict with us, because they realized that several administrations had made commitments that they didn't follow through on. And they were tired that their taxpayers were carrying the burden for Anguilla. And when they had asked us to make some sacrifice for ourselves, we didn't want to and kicked it down the road. But here we are, Madam Speaker. We have done the people's work. I think we put our hands to the task. And I think that when the record is shown, that we have handled it well. And that is what the people will have to decide when elections come. I really think that we have represented well, Madam Speaker. And I really think that we have, not only locally, but regionally and internationally, this team, the names of this team are known in the mouths of everyone globally because of the great work that has been done by this team. Thank you. And when you hear about in the world of climate change, the Honorable Quincy Gums Marie is known as a stalwart, a giant in that field. And we know that climate change is one of those that, it's an existential threat to our well-being. In the world of education, the Honorable Deanne Kentish-Rogers. Small as she is known internationally, and she is not just because she has a pretty face and was a pageant queen and Miss Universe Great Britain, but she has represented well, Anguilla. Minister Hayden Hughes, when he goes to the conferences throughout in tourism and in infrastructure, he stands up well to those who have had many more years of experience. And he represents us well. Minister Kenneth Hodge. You know, there is a committee of 24 from the United Nations that deals with decolonization and recognizes the non-self-governing territories. Minister Hodge has been there twice, in Venezuela and also in St. Lucia, representing Anguilla. The first time we would have heard about the C24 committee, or the Committee of 24, which again deals with decolonization, would have been back in 1967 when Jeremiah Gums, an Anguillan, went to the United Nations to represent Anguilla at the time of the revolution, when Anguilla was seceding from the state of St. Kitts Nevis, Anguilla. Minister Hodge now has that great honor that he has been there representing Anguilla in these same type of settings. And he's done minimum wage, and he's working on private pensions, but this type of representation, can you look, I won't cast aspersions on the other side. So I'm just saying then we move on now to the Honorable Merrick Richardson, Parliamentary Secretary. And when Minister Gums-Marie was following the direction of the Minister for Home Affairs to increase the population in Anguilla, and she was tied up prenatally, Minister Richardson went to the BVI, he went to St. Vincent, he went to Nevis, St. Kitts, to represent agriculture, to represent renewable energy, to represent food security and fisheries in St. Martin, elsewhere. He has done the work. He continues to do the work in sports and youth and culture. Don't connect youth and to the previous thing about increasing the population. You know, the Deputy Speaker, you know, he's retired from those things, he told me. So, but I just say that I am proud of the team, Madam Speaker, and any one of us, and I don't even have to talk about the reinforcements we have coming, you know, Leneva Hodge, Jamie Hodge, Lennox Vanderpool. Well, you know, I hold him in such high esteem, I call him the maestro. And I do know that, you know, he will perform well in this House of Assembly, in the halls of government, and representing District 2 without any, I have no hesitation. Courtney Morton, my ministerial assistant in finance. You'd never know that he is so forceful when he's in a meeting with us because he seems so quiet. People have said he's not aggressive, but when he, you know, puts the bit in his mouth and he wants to get something done, he stays on you, he nags at you, he's looking out, he says, this person in his district is asking him about something, he's there representing, Madam Speaker. And so don't let his quiet demeanor fool you. He can be a pit bull on steroids when you get him started. I hope that doesn't become a meme tomorrow, although we do know that, that these are things that can get people elected, as we know in 2010. But I just want to say the whole team has made me proud to have led them. And I do hope that the people of Island Harbor and the Pond Ground, the Cops, White Hill, Mount Fortune, Welch's, Chalvers, and we do have a little bit in East End also, and Junks Hole, that when they come out to vote, that they will vote for this team. They'll vote for me and the district, Ellis, Lorenzo, Webster, circle next to the boat. And then they'll vote for our 4 at-large candidates, Artland Vanterpool. And we don't have to talk much about Artland because his work represents itself. He has been there with farming and previously worked in the agriculture department, fishing and farming, while he was a special assistant. And then when he was in this house, he still was working for the people. And he continues to work now with the Minister for Sustainability, Innovation, and the Environment to identify areas where we can continue in food security, continue to enhance our agriculture and our fishing. Vote Gleneva Hodge, the boat. And Gleneva, we know, has been an avid advocate for social improvement and development, including and especially for women and children. We have Kenneth Hodge, which I spoke about earlier, the boat. And then, of course, Quincy Gomes-Marie. There are not enough words to describe the work that this giant of a woman has done for the past 4.5 years. She served as parliamentary secretary. But as parliamentary secretary, she was working more than as a minister. She came up with the bubble concept so that we could get Anguilla open back to tourism, our main industry, when all the hospitality workers were getting is $800 or $1,000 EC dollars a month. Now they're getting service charges of $3,000 US dollars a month. I mean, this is because of this administration and the policies we put in place. Thank you. This is because this administration put its hands to the plow. We got the runway resurfaced so that American Airlines can have direct flights into Anguilla. That increased access to Anguilla. And every year since then, Madam Speaker, the tourism numbers have been higher than they were the year before. We have worked with investors and developers to increase the amount of beds that there are for tourism in villas and hotel projects. The construction is so high in Anguilla that the governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank on July 19th, with the change of chairmanship of the Monetary Council, he said that construction levels were so high in Anguilla. We had, where the economy was growing at 8.2% when the average for the other members of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union was 4.5%, almost double. That is because of the policies and the work of this administration, and because we have people in Anguilla that put their hands to work. Our hospitality workers, our public servants, those who work in other industries, those in the banks and everywhere, want to do the work because they see this country as something worth saving. They are not out there advocating for their leaders to say, Britain, come for your country. They are like the Anguillians of old who said when they were told that they should go elsewhere, to Demerara and to Aruba and elsewhere, they said, we will stay in Anguilla and we will die on a rock rather than leave this country. So, Madam Speaker, as I said earlier, this has been the best time of my life, something that I'll always honor, that I have been able to serve in this House, and I look forward to another term in this House as the leader of government business. But if the people choose otherwise, and they can, it's their choice, then I must say that this has made me a better person. Because I could have all the individual accolades as a doctor, as a surgeon, but to have served the people of Anguilla to the best of my ability and to serve with this able-bodied, competent, caring team has elevated me as a person. And I must say that, you know, it's something that I'll always remember. And so today, I want to thank again the people of District 1, thank the people of Anguilla who've had the confidence in me. And I want to thank those who have made it possible for us to be here so that we can do this, our forebears. And for the generations now and to come, know that this Anguilla progressive movement has given themselves, given their all, have survived all the negative statements and comments and allegations and outright lies, Madam Speaker, that have been said and are being said up until even just now. I mean, it was read in your presence. You know, a lie that is known as a lie, but said anyway. I saw something else just yesterday that said that this government has committed to $960 million in the budget. I mean, I don't know where that came from because I think our expenditure is only about $530 million, where 110 of that is capital spending just on the airport, among the other capital spends and the other 80-something, because it's 191 million total we're spending in capital, which is about, you know, that's what, 40% of the expenditure budget. But I don't know where they got this 960 million from. And then it's stated that this is debt that this administration has committed to. You know, and this is a person who has become a spokesperson for the Anguilla United Front, openly stated that they recognize and represent the Anguilla United Front. So, and they've made time on radio stations for the minister and me to come on to explain this debt that we're going into. Now, I think anybody, even if you don't have a finance background, would understand that in a budget, you base it on projections that this will come based on whatever policies they are, based on revenue streams. And because we have a medium-term economic and fiscal plan that runs for 3 years, that has to be approved by the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office. So basically it means that you have to have reasonable policies and reasonable revenue expectations. But this is just to confuse and conflate and obfuscate so that the people will latch on to this and say, okay, this Anguilla Progressive Movement administration is not doing the right thing. Madam Speaker, there are no new taxes in the budget of 2025. There are no new taxes projected in the medium-term economic and fiscal plan for the next 3 years, 2025, 2026, 2027. And so anybody who has ears, let them hear. Anybody who can read, let them read. And anybody who has understanding would know that these are just intentional, postings and utterances made to confuse the electorate because we're so close to the elections of 2025. So I just want the people to understand, to know that what you hear from us is what you hear from us. What you hear from the other side, you'll hear from them, but take it with a grain of salt. Somebody said 2 grains because of the nature of it. So I just want to say again, thank you very much for your service, Madam Speaker. It has been an honor to have you lead this honorable House, and I know that sometimes it hasn't been smooth sailing. And but that's what you signed on to. And I think you've trained us well, because we know when to hold our tongue. We know when not to, we know when to sit, when we have to sit. And so, you know, I'm hoping that you're here again in March to open the 13th session, the 13th Anguilla House of Assembly. And I just want to say to all, thank you. May God bless you. May God continue to bless Anguilla.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you, Honorable Member, and thanks to all members for their orders of the day. So now it's on me to say thank you to all of you, because without your vote and support, I would not be sitting in this seat either. But since it is, since we have received the proclamation for the closure of this House, I am just going to take this opportunity at this time to thank the loyal staff of this House. They are very hard-working people. It's a small staff, as you can see, headed by a competent leader, I should say, Mike Clark. Thank you, Joash. Thank you so much, and thank you to Vanisha, for your hard work and your commitment to moving the Assembly forward. Thanks to the support staff, Raniqua and to Stekela, thank you so much for your hard work. We can always count on you at any time to assist members. We are indeed grateful. Thanks to the chaplain and to my sergeant of arms, I thank you so much for your contribution to this House as well. Thank you. We have achieved much. I'm sorry. Yeah, how can I forget Randy? Thank you so much, Randy. We can always count on you to be there in our times of technical trouble. Thanks to the technical team, Dites. Thank you, Randy. So the technical team, and also to Teal, who's always here. Thank you so much. I hope I haven't left out anyone at this stage. I've thanked my sergeant, I've thanked him. Yes, I have. So I was about to say we have achieved much in our in this term that we have been here. The House was able to amend, I should say, its rules of 1976, the rules of procedure. So now we have new rules to govern the House, and we were able to do that with a lot of hard work and commitment from the members of this House, from the committees that we've put together. I thank you so much. I know it's not easy, you know, to come every time to committee meetings, but you have found a way, and we have found a way to make those changes. And of course, we are better off for it. This House was able to successfully host the second British Overseas Territories Speakers Conference. And we have put forward a roadmap, and I am hoping that we can be to the forefront of that roadmap, setting an example to lead the way in accomplishing those goals on the roadmap as well. So I want to thank also the AG Chambers, and I thank specifically Ms. Yusvan Brooks. She's been here in the early stages, and I wish to thank her for all that she's done. We still have some more work to complete in publishing our magazine for the 45th anniversary, which was interrupted by COVID, but I know that she's moved into the AG Chambers and has been taken away, but she's still most committed to completing that, and we will work on completing that, although the house will be brought to a close. So I thank you again, members. Thank you to the people of Anguilla. Thank you so much for your support, because as you've heard from members, it hasn't been it hasn't been easy to sit in this seat. And from time to time, I've had to exercise patience until it's run out. But I have applied the rules where I've had to apply them, and sometimes I just remain patient and say, keep quiet. So I have learned to keep quiet sometimes too, member for Island Harbor. Yes. So I am indeed grateful to have served, and my service is available at any time as long as it's helping Anguilla to move forward. Thank you once again. And now I'll ask the clerk to read the proclamation.
By command of Her Excellency Julia Crouch, Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, Governor of Anguilla, the Constitution of Anguilla, Proclamation, Dissolution of the House of Assembly. Greeting. In the name of His Most Excellent Britannic Majesty Charles III, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and our other realms and territories, King, Head of the Commonwealth, Defender of the Faith. Whereas the first meeting of the first session of the 12th Anguilla House of Assembly was summoned by proclamation of the Governor on the 17th day of July 2020, pursuant to Section 62(1) of the Constitution of Anguilla, and whereas it is provided by Section 63(2) of the Constitution of Anguilla that the Governor, acting after consultation with the Premier, may at any time, by proclamation, publish in the Official Gazette dissolution of the Assembly, and therefore, I, Julia Crouch, OBE, Governor of Anguilla, in exercise of the powers conferred upon me by Section 63(2) of the Constitution of Anguilla, and acting after consultation with the Premier, hereby dissolve the present Assembly on the 29th day of January 2025. And the Speaker and members of the House of Assembly are discharged from their meeting and attendance, and all His Majesty's officers and loving subjects of Anguilla, and all those other persons whom it may concern, are hereby required to take due notice hereof and to govern themselves accordingly. Given under my hand and the public seal of Anguilla at Government House this 28th day of January 2025, signed, Julia Crouch, OBE, Governor of Anguilla. God save the King. By command of Her Majesty Julia Crouch, Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, Governor of Anguilla, the Constitution of Anguilla, proclamation appointing a date for holding a general election. Greeting. In the name of His Most Excellent Britannic Majesty Charles III, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of our other realms and territories, King, Head of the Commonwealth, Defender of the Faith. Whereas the 12th Anguilla House of Assembly was, on the 29th day of January 2025, dissolved by proclamation in accordance with the provision of Section 63 of the Constitution of Anguilla, and whereas it is provided by Section 64 of the Constitution of Anguilla that there shall be a general election at such time within 2 months after every dissolution of the Assembly as the governor shall by proclamation appoint. Now therefore, I, Julia Crouch, OBE, Governor of Anguilla, in exercise of the powers conferred upon me by Section 64 of the Constitution, hereby proclaim and appoint Wednesday, the 26th day of February 2025, to be the date for a general election of the members of the Assembly. And all His Majesty's officers and loving subjects of Anguilla, and all other persons whom it may concern, are hereby required to take due notice hereof and to govern themselves accordingly. Given under my hand and public seal of Anguilla at Government House this 28th day of January 2025, signed Julia Crouch, OBE, Governor of Anguilla. God save the King.
This honorable house now stands officially dissolved. Members, have a great day and much success in your re-election. Thank you.